What up, y'all? On today's episode, we have my boy, Lucas Artaiz. I met Lucas as far as like deep, close, developed friendships, kind of a hypothetical best man list. I met Lucas relatively late in life. I met Lucas in, I guess, technically 2011, when we were both teaching out in Phoenix. We didn't really start hanging out regularly to 2012, 2013, but we soon became fast friends. We both left teaching in Phoenix. I moved down to Honduras to do nonprofit work down there, and then Lucas went off to law school at the University of Chicago. I have close family in Chicago. My sister and her kids are in Chicago, so every time I would go up to visit them, when Lucas was in law school, I would, always take a day or two to go down and hang out with Lucas at his apartment and hang out at U Chicago, and that's when our friendship really started to blossom. And now our friendship has reached like peak closeness, peak friendship level. Lucas is my baby's daddy. I am Lucas's nanny. We've been talking about this kind of hypothetically, and we get into it in the podcast, exactly how this came about, but kind of half jokingly, for several years, Lucas was living obviously a more traditional lifestyle, and I was living my vagabond exploratory lifestyle. And we would half jokingly talk about, hey, when I get married and have a kid, you should be my nanny and live in my basement and teach kids Spanish. And then slowly but surely over the years, that became less and less a joke and more of an actual reality. And as I got into my late 20s and 30s, and my priorities started to change, and I started to really kind of solidify this fact that I do truly want to be a father at some point. Coming out and being Lucas's nanny seemed like the perfect opportunity to do a dad internship, essentially, to truly prepare myself for fatherhood, something I am not taking lightly, something I want to be truly prepared for when the time comes, something I want to be able to hit the ground running, doing when I do have my own child. And I really don't want to do so. I would really like that to be my full focus. Ideally, I would like to be a full-time stay-at-home dad if possible, or at least work from home. And so being his nanny is kind of the perfect way to learn the ropes of that potential lifestyle. Anyway, so I moved out here right at the end of 2019, and have been out here ever since. And then COVID hit, and our relationship with both Lucas, his wife, and obviously his beautiful daughter has gotten far closer than we ever expected. We were all trapped in the same house together. I live in the guest house in the back, and they work from home, and so we're all very much on top of each other and very close. And actually, things are going really, really well. Lucas is one of the smartest. He may be my most intelligent friend from just a classic intelligence standpoint, SAT score standpoint, academic knowledge standpoint. He certainly has intelligence far beyond the traditional realm of academia. He just has a powerful brain. But as far as academia is concerned, he's incredibly powerful being. Probably the most intelligent friend I have in that sense. He's a lawyer. Well, he'll get into all his stuff. This is a couple things that are unique about this interview. First, this is going to be the last of my pre-recorded interviews, and I have no further interviews recorded after this. We recorded this at the very end of 2019 when I first moved out to LA. I have not recorded any interviews since. All of the previous episodes of this podcast were recorded prior to the recording of this, throughout from 2017 to 2019. So all interviews following this will be, essentially, recorded in real time, much more like a traditional podcast. I record them, on Monday and post it on Tuesday or on Monday night. And so that's how things will go going forward. This is the last interview I had recorded. And so things are up in the air from here. Also, a little different with this interview. We don't, kind of with all the other interviews, I took more of a traditional start from the day you were born and then tell your life story format. We start the interview here with getting in. I think we just started recording it randomly. I don't think we actually even planned on recording it. I think we were just talking about his childhood, and I was like, I'm going to grab the recorder. So we do start off talking about the economic hardships that his family experienced growing up. Lucas grew up in rural-ish Oregon. and his family did not have much money, and so I think that's kind of where the interview starts, and it gets a little choppy. Like I said, we didn't plan on recording it at the time. His baby's in the background for much of it, so it kind of gets a little choppy. We maintain the same narrative throughout, but I think we recorded on 2 or 3 separate days, and then at least in the beginning of the interview, the baby is kind of interrupting or having to put her down for naps and stuff. But the narrative stays throughout, and the interview ultimately flows nicely. And like I said, Lucas is a is a very powerful mind, so the guy can go deep on any topic you want. I think that's it as far as the intro. Here is my boy, Lucas Artaiz. What you were saying about being poor as a child.
It wasn't poor.
Yeah, poor is relative, right?
Yeah. And also I think, Josephine, you can't. Jojo. The one thing she
knows.
Yeah. She can sense.
Get that ample bottle.
Right.
I'm drinking out of this ample bottle. I really mixed it in this thing.
Watch.
Yeah, good choice.
So at least in my house growing up, what I observed in my parents especially, but I've seen this kind of play out in my siblings and how they've come to, I'd say their relationship with money. There are like 2 disadvantages. There are more than that, but there are 2 primary disadvantages that I observed around not having a lot of money. One is just the fact of not being able to buy things and afford things and take advantage of opportunities, whether they're financial or educational or whatever. I had a great life growing up, and I don't think that I was shortchanged or things that we missed out on. But as a factual matter, we wouldn't do certain things, couldn't buy certain things. And that's what, not having money, that's what money's for. But the other effect is the stress associated with worrying about money and worrying about the budget, worrying whether or not you're going to be able to, never mind, give your kids the right opportunity or the best opportunity that might be available if you had the resources, but also actually paying for things you need, like food and gas and cars and house payment or something, rent if you're renting. And so one is the stuff you buy or can't buy, afford or can't afford, and the other is the kind of residual emotional impact of that reality. And as between those 2 things, I always felt that the latter one was worse.
Psychological? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that the stress of making sure you weren't wasting money. And that was if you don't have much, wasting money is the cardinal sin. Buying something that's not on sale when it's on sale half a mile away. Going out to eat when you could have packed a lunch. Those kinds of things.
Leaving lights on, opening the door. If you got to, pop outside for half a second, grab something that's 15 feet away. Doesn't matter how fast you are. You leave that door open while you make that full trip rather than open, close, go, open, close. Yeah.
My dad used to say, I can see my dollars flying out the open door. Yeah.
So was it a constant discussion?
It wasn't a discussion, but I could tell anytime money came up or there was something occurred that would financially impact. Some of the more visceral memories around money had to do with, one time my mom got a speeding ticket. Mm-hmm. And she was so upset by it. But not because she had to interact with the cops or it would go on a record or anything like that. It was just that's $230 that
did not need to be burnt.
Right. That's 2 weeks worth of food. Mm-hmm. That's, and so that, there are kind of virtuous framings of it, right? Like, mind the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. A penny saved is a penny earned. Mm-hmm. Those types of things where there's something, like virtuous. But there's kind of this unavoidable side effect of living that way, that you're going to have to pay attention to something that other people don't necessarily have to pay attention to.
Totally.
And I think when I got to a place in my life and career where I knew that I didn't have to do that. I could, and maybe there would be some down the road payoff, and
didn't have to do what?
Didn't have to care so much.
Oh, right.
About
frugality.
Right. And didn't have to spend time and energy and focus on saving money. And didn't have to beat myself up emotionally for spending money. And that's another thing that, like...
you nailed it. It's the psychological effects.
Right.
We started recording this because I asked you, how does it feel now that you're a successful... Both you and your wife are successful lawyers at high-powered firms. Money is not an issue necessarily.
Yeah.
How does that feel? And is there anything...
So there's two kind of... Coming back to those first two things we're talking about, what you can afford, what you can buy, what you can do, whereas you couldn't otherwise. And then the stress that you necessarily have to take on because this thing is a precious resource. And if you don't focus on it, if you don't worry about it, your dollars fly out the door.
Right.
The advantage, the thing that I'm thankful for, is that I don't worry about that stuff. Like, I can go... Just yesterday, we were shopping, right? We went to a couple different stores. There are a couple other stores that we'll shop at and go to. And we were at El Super, and I was noticing certain prices.
Yep.
Because we were paying attention to it and realizing that certain items are a lot cheaper there than they are at a number of other stores that I go to. But I don't go to multiple stores on a given day.
Right.
I will go to one store and I will buy the things that I want or need or the recipe requires without a view towards, I know this is, cheaper down the road.
Uh-huh.
And the trade-off there is I end up spending more money.
Right.
But the advantage is I don't spend my time worrying about if I can save 50 cents a pound at El Super rather than this other place.
Right.
And that trade-off that I get to worry less is the thing that money has given me. To go from an environment, growing up in an environment where we didn't have much money, to now being in a place where we do have plenty of resources. The good thing about that is not that we can buy things. It's that I don't have to worry about whether or not I can buy something.
Right.
If I want to buy this and it's not on sale, but this is what we want to have for dinner, or I think some device or gadget or whatever is going to make our life with Joe easier, or Sue takes a lot of conference calls, so I just got her the AirPods because those have microphones, and I use them for conference calls, and it's great. It really is. Like, I used to worry about how I would take a call. Do I have this on speakerphone so I can type? And I'm using some like third-party brand Bluetooth device. How is it going to sync? And if I drop the call, like, what happens? And now the fact that I can just buy an overpriced pair of like Bluetooth earbuds that really is well synced to the iPhone that I don't need, is great.
Yeah.
And so that's nice. But more importantly, it's I don't worry and stress or beat myself up about spending money or making a decision at the grocery store or on Amazon that, like, you know, this is cool, I buy it, I use it a couple times, and then it just kind of sits there and like, oh, that was a waste of money. A waste of $20.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's the coolest part about your view of it, and I think if I ever get to a point in my life where I have, you know, significant expendable income, that's how I'd like to approach it. There's nothing like some super fancy material object that I want to purchase, but just the fact, like you said, if there is something, earpods, that in you're still looking at those. What are they, like $75 or something?
I think they're
$100, $150,
something like that
for a pair of headphones.
Yeah,
you probably still look at that price sticker from your 12-year-old brain or your 16, 20-year-old brain, and you're like, what the fuck?
Less so if I'm looking at it, I buy it, and then in this case, I gave it to Sue as an early present.
Right.
Because she's had all these calls. More if my family was visiting and they saw Sue using these and were like, those are cool. Oh, it's got a microphone. Oh, these are like wireless. It's like a headset, but it's kind of discreet. Those are great. You know, and if the price came up, I would be uncomfortable saying to my parents, those are like $150.
So the feeling, if you were to have that if that situation would arise, which is a totally reasonable situation to arise, the feeling would be more uncomfortableness than like pride.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because, you know, they coming back to like the whole framing of frugality as a virtue. And the other thing is, like, they see $150 spent on a pair of iPhones as, oh, that could be money that you could pay off student loans, and then you're that much closer to being debt free. Or, you know, you put this into a college fund for JoJo, and then, you know, that's $150 that she's not going to have to go into debt later on when she goes to college. Now, setting aside for the fact that, you know,
this kid's not going to have to worry about debt for college.
Right. And also, I'll encourage her to, like, not go to college.
Not go to college.
Take a gap year, or, you know, not just go because that's what you do after high school. But also, there's another $150. Like, and there's more than that.
Right.
And,
yeah, exactly.
And,
do you think that's something your parents, like, don't even really quite grasp?
Yeah, so we had, not arguments, largely because I kind of shut the conversations down when I recognized that, like, this was just difference of perspective. But before she was born, my mom would ask about, you know, who was going to stay home and, like, what we were going to do for childcare. On the assumption, and her thing is like, if one parent can stay home full time, if you can afford that, you should do it because it's the best objectively. That is, normatively speaking, the best way to raise kids is with at least one parent home full time. And, you know, my mom knows ballpark what we make. At least she knows what I started off making, and I think she knows we get raises every year. And she'd probably freak out if she knew what we make now, but she knows we have money. And she...
Sorry to interject.
Yeah.
Do you think her reaction to that number, is more negative than positive?
It's not negative at all. It would be like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
Right.
And my reaction is like that. If we were like, actually sit down, think about what my salary is, what Sue's salary is, and what our bonuses are, and then total that up and say X number per year, I'm like holy shit, that's a lot of money,
Right.
because that's not what I grew up with.
Right.
And so even one of our salary plus bonus, or even just our salary, is many times, 5-6 times what my dad was making,
Right.
when my mom was staying home with us. So my mom sees we're having a kid. She knows that we make good money. She thinks, great, you have the money to have one person stay home full time. You only need one of you to work. You can survive and thrive on only one salary. Aren't you, like, congratulations,
You did
made
it.
right?
Yeah.
And to us, it's like, that's not necessarily what we want to do. And she's like, why not? Like, why do you need this additional money?
Okay, I'm going to chime in here because a common theme throughout these interviews I've been doing over the last couple of years is the general theme is like, I have no idea how to like be an adult on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to just take a step back and observe other people being adults on planet Earth and trying to learn how to do it.
Right.
And a big theme has been this concept I call the assembly line life, where you are born out of this factory, and then as humans, especially in the Western world, we are just these drones. We are drones that come out of the factory, and then we go to the first stage of like re-equipping ourselves in elementary school, and then that spits us out on the assembly line to the next factory, middle school, and it seems like everyone is kind of following the same path, and that ultimately, generally speaking, we're living the same life as we were when we were cave people. We reproduce. We are born. We learn how to be adults ourselves and survive individually.
Right.
Then we create other human beings. We teach them how to be adults individually.
Right.
Then we die. Our offspring, are now adults. They reproduce. Teach the next person how to be an adult. Then they die, and go on and go on.
Right.
And so your mom's approach, your mom's thinking seems to me very much in line with that. Listen, you made it.
Yeah.
You were born.
Yeah.
You survived childhood.
Yeah.
You became an adult. You learned how to become self-sufficient. You're no longer leaving the cave to go hunt a woolly mammoth and bring it back to your like spouse and child. But being a lawyer is just taking the place of that.
Yeah.
But so I'm wondering, is there something more? Like, is there a next level of human existence? And it seems like perhaps what y'all are doing is that. Like, there is something beyond just birth, reproduction, and death.
Right.
Y'all are trying to... Your lives aren't over now that you've reproduced.
Right.
You still are you and Sue are two thriving, growing human individuals.
Right.
And you want to continue living your own lives and achieving and accomplishing. Is that your thinking behind why one of you doesn't stay home?
Yeah, that's part of it. I think there's other layers. So part of it is that this conversation with my mom, this like disconnect that she and I have about, she doesn't quite understand why we're making the choices that we're making, because we have this option to approach things the way that she does. I think part of that has to do with, one, she raised us, and I think our generation, she was generally raised to be empowered, and I feel empowered to, the most generic framing would be follow my dreams, right? You can do anything. Don't do, anything just because you're supposed to, or because it's what your dad did.
Right.
You should make an informed and well-reasoned and well-reflected decision about what to do with your life. And they really encourage us to do that. And I think if I look at my siblings, if I were to describe my siblings, Tom teaching in China, Sam studying ducks in Alaska, Ben running his bar, Olivia moving to Australia to pursue this PhD.
Yeah.
If I describe them to, say, coworkers, they're all like, wow, that's super interesting. They really seem to be kind of pursuing all these things far-flung, both in terms of sector or the nature of their work, but also just geographically all over the place. And they view it as kind of like unique and non-traditional and all of that. And I think that's true, and I think that's what my parents wanted for us and continue to want for us, is that we feel empowered and are able to pursue our passions and do all that. And if you look at my life and my career, it's more traditional. It's a little bit more mainstream, even if the numbers of people who become a lawyer versus run a bar are, there's a well-worn path that is also very different from those other four. In my family, I'm kind of an outlier in that I'm doing something that's a lot more traditional, professionally speaking. And I think when I talk to my family, not so much my immediate family, they've come around. I have this conversation less with them, but extended family for sure, and because they all kind of have a similar perspective. They're, I don't think they think I sold out, but I think they think that I got sucked into some sort of hamster wheel of societal expectations and decided to do this thing because it was safe and because it's a profession that people generally recognize as relatively prestigious, and it's something that, it has all the trappings of middle class, upper middle class existence, and they don't see it as maybe this is what I like. My brother likes working with ducks. I like working with legal documents, and everyone's kind of different and has their different interests. I like being a lawyer. It's hard, and the time that I have to put forth and the effort and the lack of control over my schedule that sometimes comes with that is frustrating. But find a job that's not frustrating and challenging at times. I like my job. I like my career. And so when my mom is like, oh, one of you gets to stay. Oh, and by the way, this goes for Sue as well. She likes being a lawyer more than I do, frankly. When she's like, oh, good, one of you gets to stay home. It's like, oh, I don't want to stay home. I like work. I like to work. And of course I like staying with Joe. And, it's going to be hard to be at the office. And was hard when I was still working, when Sue was the one on the leave. But I think wrapped up in the question, in part, is the assumption that we would rather not work. And that the only reason we're working is because we want the money.
Right.
Right? The money outweighs the benefit of getting to spend all day with JoJo, and doesn't account for the I don't want to go so far as to say joy, but the fulfillment of a career that you tend to like. And that's part of, I think, where the disconnect is. Not less so now. I think they've kind of come to recognize that, and and also probably come to just kind of accept it. But we like our jobs, and as stressful and demanding as they are sometimes, again, anything we're doing is going to challenge you. And so the other thing does have to do with money. And this is a harder conversation. I don't have this so explicitly with my mom, but the value of not raising Joe in an environment where money is a stress, and the advantage, money creates stress individually and tension in relationships, and that was something that if I could just take a scalpel and carve that particular thing out of my childhood and my home life growing up and my parents' relationship and all that, I would, because I don't think it's a positive thing. And another advantage of both of us working is that we don't have that stress. We have other stress. We have schedule, time constraints, demands at work, but it's a trade-off. Life's about trade-offs. And so for us, we've, at least for now, are making this trade-off that, we're going to be busier than my parents were growing up, when we were growing up. But there are other advantages. Another thing that I know is important to Sue is that when she was growing up, she was born in Korea, different time, and her mom was a stay-at-home mom. And Sue saw her mom give up a career to raise the kids. And that is part of what drives Sue now in her career, is that, my mom was, I wouldn't say denied this opportunity, but didn't do this thing. And I want to do this thing. As much to prove to myself and to my family that, I don't know. Sue's family's fantastic, and they're progressive, and they support her in her career. And I don't mean to say that they think she should be at home. I don't think they think that. I think if you ask them, they would say she's doing the right thing, actually. But I think generationally and societally, there is some of that. Not just in Korea, certainly in the States, that the roles and responsibilities of men and women vis-a-vis career and home life are different. And Sue is as much thinking about her career as an example for Josephine as she is thinking about it as her own thing to be enjoyed and explored and kind of pursued. So when my mom says, you should stay home because wouldn't you want to, and wouldn't it be better? Our perspective is different, and it's that, well, maybe, but we like our jobs, and we can stay at home we want to, as long as that's not going to hurt her, JoJo. Also, we want to give Joe an example of what a career woman looks like, and someone
good point
pursues that, and there's value in that, providing that to your child as a parent. We want to make sure that we have the financial resources to, when she's old enough to understand, that she doesn't have anxiety around money. I think you want to be responsible, and it's important to teach good habits around that stuff, but the guilt and shame that comes with being poor in our society is I don't think, positive. And so we can alleviate that. And so there's this kind of basket of trade-offs that's inherent in what we're doing. The biggest one for me personally has to do with the stress and anxiety around money, but it also has to do with you raising a kid, and what example do you want to set, and what opportunities you want to give her, and all that.
I'll pause it really. We're gonna go pee.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll do a bathroom break, and I also want to get JoJo fed.
When you look at what you make versus what Corbin makes, is that what you said?
Yeah, we're just wealth generally. It seems pretty clear that, put it this way, if I'm hanging out with my cousins or something who have careers, but they're pretty, I think one of them's actually they got pretty good, one's getting his PhD in a PT school. One of them is he's in his last year of law school. I don't think he's going to go work at a firm.
Sound like a bunch of fuck-ups.
One of them works in for a medical device company, or medical physics or something. But that wasn't always the case. And when we were younger, we used to talk a little bit about this stuff. And the perception was I make a lot of money. And yeah.
Personally,
when I was at my job, like so this job, like as a lawyer, you'd be like, wow, like, you know, you guys get paid a lot. And I honestly think the problem is a warping of the baseline, like how much poor people make, relatively speaking. It's not that we make a lot; it's that poor people make so little.
Yeah,
and also that the ultra wealthy, they don't earn a wage or like even a salary. They're not working for a paycheck for the most part. It usually just has to do with the assets that they hold,
right,
and how profitable. How much wealth the capital generates. That's capitalism.
I heard something recently. I'd never thought of wealth this way. You don't get rich by trading your time
right.
for money.
Right. Yes, it's totally true.
But that's also relative because I would say, for instance, let's just take your example.
Yeah.
You do get rich by trading your time for money.
No, I don't.
But tells you your definition of rich.
Right. But I think that's the thing is there's been, because poor people make little, there's been this kind of warping of what it means to have a lot of money and what's a lot of money and all that. I'll look this up right now. When the minimum wage started.
And actually looking that up, let me try one with this.
Yeah.
That's not axiom, is that what you would say? It's not necessarily true. You don't get rich by trading your time for money. It does if you have a particularly unique skill, right? Professional athletes certainly get rich trading their time for money. Actors,
for a period of time.
Entertainers,
yeah, but those are you're talking about
the extreme outliers,
right? And also, the people who get rich off of football as a pursuit are not the players; they're the owners. Right,
Gotcha.
And the people who make a ton of money on movies are not the actors; they're the production companies.
Gotcha.
And the distribution companies, the people who own the content. Right? It's Disney. It's not The Rock doing his voice acting. So it has to do with there are two things you ask basically when you might want to ask when you're evaluating this question. It's like, how much is the enterprise worth? Like, how much is football worth? Right. And also, how is the wealth that's generated from football distributed between the way people talk about it in economic analysis is capital and labor,
right?
The people who work and the people who own. And basically, the people who own are the ones who actually make the real money, the big money.
Because even if it's 50-50 split, there's only 32 of them.
Yeah. Let me see.
Looking up minimum wage.
Yeah, so it started in 1938. Yeah, so at its peak, minimum wage was the equivalent of $10.15 an hour in 2018 dollars. So that's a little off.
So it's out of control now then.
What do you think the federal minimum wage is?
Oh, I'm just saying in places like Seattle, Portland, DC, California, liberal places.
Why is it out of control? Cost of living there is higher. So really you're thinking about purchasing power in an economy, right? So how much does $10 get you in Portland versus Omaha, Nebraska? The federal minimum wage sets the national floor, right? So we say, it doesn't matter where you live, you'll never make less than this. But certain localities are free to raise it, and they tend to do it in places where the cost of living is higher. Right?
But that's not necessarily... Okay, yeah, okay. I won't pick.
Yeah.
But, like Illinois, for instance, is raising the cost of minimum wage.
Okay.
Plenty of places in Illinois are making $15 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Seems a little excessive if you're flipping burgers.
Again, I think the question you have to ask is how profitable is the enterprise, and then what percentage of that should go to labor, right? Versus ownership. And I think if you look historically, it used to be that due to incremental increases in technology and training and education, somebody working in 1950 versus 1960 the person in 1960 they were more productive. 1 hour of their time accomplished more, right? And you can follow this trend line through. People today are much more productive because of the tools and technology and what we know to be efficient ways of production, how to model assembly lines, what's the best way to how should you organize your store to maximize, right? Go to IKEA. They've perfected it. There's a maze, right? You have to see their whole store before you can check out. And so, but generally speaking, the individual worker's time is worth more to an enterprise because they're able to do more. And for a long time, as productivity increased, so did their wages. We're going to pay you more because you're more productive. But there was a decoupling. Let me see if I can find it. It's a pretty popular graph.
Okay, so productivity and average real earnings. Essentially, the productivity continues to, right around 1970, productivity continues to increase, but wages for laborers stagnates.
Yes. Yeah. So that, now, who captures the, call it economic surplus? Who captures the value of that increased productivity? It's the people who own the company, right? The people at McDonald's are not individually, I guess with burgers, they're flipping them. But the technology, if you go to a fast food place, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue, and I think a lot of people would, that technology was developed not by labor, right? It's not like the dude who was flipping burgers at McDonald's who said, I got this idea.
Well, it probably was, right? You probably had to flip burgers at some point.
In some instances, but it was more than likely...
Or at least be involved some way in the burger flipping process.
Maybe. Or it was third parties who, saw this going on. They're like, well, fast food's a thing. There's this many stores nationwide. If I could develop a better mousetrap with respect to this particular process that happens in 80% of fast food things, I'm going to make a lot of money because I'll be able to sell it to them, and they would make a lot of money because these companies would pay a lot of money to the inventor to buy the technology and have it in their various stores. And then you would say, well, that increase in productivity was not due to labor actually getting more skilled or more education or more training. It's an economic investment that the ownership made. Or it might be the case that McDonald's is like, man, we're running X number of tens of thousands. I don't know how many stores they have worldwide. And I bet there are some efficiencies. So maybe we'll hire a third party, or maybe we'll hire, have an innovation department internally to look at this issue of, and then again, that's a cash outlay, capital outlay by the company. And so they say, well, we paid that productivity increase on a per worker basis. That's not really because people are working harder or smarter. It's because we spent money to make our business run more efficiently. Mm-hmm. So why should the worker make $1 more just because I'm running this $1 more efficiently? And I think a big part of that kind of disconnect is the tension and the kind of oppositional perspective between ownership and labor, where you say a dollar we pay to you is $1 that we can't take home, and there's this kind of zero-sum game within the firm. Whereas it used to be that ownership and labor would split. So we just became $1 more efficient. Here's 50 cents to you. Here's 50 cents to us. And so as our society, technologically, training, education, the whole system is improving and getting better, the owners are going to do better and the workers are going to do better. But that's not really the case anymore. People tend to kind of make the same low-wage labor is low-wage labor, regardless of how much profit they're generating. They're not partners in the enterprise. They're in expense, right? Maintenance and upkeep, raw materials, labor, these are all expenses. So there's not as much ownership or You don't work at McDonald's and get stock options. You get a paycheck. And it's a small paycheck, which is fine.
But you could use that paycheck, theoretically, a portion of it, to get stock options in any company.
Provided you can cover your cost of living. And that's kind of what the living wage movement is about, is saying, well, it's great that McDonald's is paying these people X dollars, and it's pretty simple work, and they could probably fire this person, put a now hiring sign up, and find somebody else to do it. But by not paying them enough, they've created somebody, they're taking, say, 40 hours of their week away. And so now that person isn't able to kind of hold down another job, or maybe they work 2 jobs, but between these jobs, all their time is tied up, and they're able to scrape together X amount of dollars per month. Well, what happens if, like, they get sick? Or what happens if, they can't afford health insurance because McDonald's isn't giving their employees health insurance? I don't know if they do or not. Besides the point, not every employer does. Well, you and I pay taxes, and so
speak for yourself, bro.
right. People who make enough to pay taxes, and certainly people who make more money pay more in taxes to pay for that person's health insurance, to pay for that housing subsidy, to pay for that the types of expenses that they can't cover, but that we as a society say, well, it wouldn't be a good thing if, like, you get sick and you die. You can go to the ER, right? Maybe we'll go into medical debt or whatever, have wages garnished. But there's a kind of a baseline of services that we as a society think that people should have regardless of their station in life. But the effect of, McDonald's, how much profit did they make last year? Right? They were able to make that profit in part because taxpayers subsidized their income, the money that they made from McDonald's. McDonald's says, here's 80 cents. And it turns out it costs $1 to live in society. So taxpayers said, hey, here's 20 cents. Right? And who's better off because of that? Certainly the worker, but also McDonald's. Because now their employees have health insurance. Right? And so this is a type of corporate welfare. Right? Social programs and, like, public assistance. When it goes to people who are employed full-time, in a way, is a subsidy for their employer, because it makes sure that they're in a situation where they can continue to show up to work. They don't have to take the time off because they're sick all the time, right? And so the hurt, right? Why should you increase the minimum wage? Why is that a good idea, right? Well, it forces employers to pay what it actually costs to be a worker in society, to make a car payment, to make a house payment, or pay rent, pay for health insurance, that sort of thing. Because otherwise the people who own the company are like, we're going to pay our employees dirt. The public will pick up the slack in terms of what it costs to live. So we'll still have employees who still show up every day. And so that kind of disconnect between the people who own the business, right, and the people who pay for it is I'm not making money off of McDonald's. I don't see a return on my, wages that I pay to McDonald's employees in the form of taxes.
I'm going to transition from minimum wage talk to paying a nanny talk. So I'm here as your nanny. What is it when y'all have this kid? Fortunately, you work for these awesome law firms that have, at least for this country, awesome maternity and paternity leave policies. Right. What was y'all's thinking as you're getting pregnant, to giving birth to offspring, to, like, getting into your maternity and paternity leave months? What y'all's thinking in discussion about, okay, what are we doing here? Because as you mentioned before we went to pee, before we paused, both of y'all want to continue working. Right. So what y'all's thinking about how getting this kid to kindergarten?
So part of the benefit of our jobs is that even though they're extremely demanding and time consuming, they're also very flexible. So you'll have a first row seat to see how around we are when we're working. And I hope it's more than, more than if we were working 9 to 5. Now we'll see.
You think you'll be around more than when you were working 9 to 5?
Mm-hmm. I think I will spend less time at the office than 9 to 5.
So are you anticipating on work going back, kind of tying it to the minimum wage thing, are you anticipating I'm not working 40-hour weeks?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or I think you're going to be available, or I hope you're going to be available for about 40 hours a week.
I'm available whenever you need me.
Right, and that's the benefit. But like, let's say I have a slow day at work. Or let's say, given day, I go into the office at 9:30. I leave here at 9:30, get in around 10, work for a bit, and then come home at 4. Now, I might get an email that says like, hey, I need this turned quickly. In which case I say, hey, Alex, I got to take care of this thing. Can you keep an eye on Joe for a bit? But, and of course I want you to be, and you are welcome to be like here and in the room and in the house and all that. But if you're like, hey, you're home, I'm going to go run to the store. I'm going to go for a quick jog or something. Yeah, cool. Mm-hmm. Keep your phone on. Mm-hmm. But that's fine. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think you my expectation, and I hope this is how it shakes out, is that while we need you to be available, I don't anticipate you being here with Joe by yourself more than 40 hours a week. Hopefully far less. Cool. Hopefully closer to 30. I think each of us will work from home at least one day a week. I think we'll also tend to leave earlier than we would otherwise. Now, the flip side of that is there are certain things at work that are deadline driven, and it's like, I need to get this done by 5 or by close of business or all that, and I'll have to do that. But there are a lot of things that are more like by tomorrow, by next week, by Thursday. And in those cases, it's like, all right, I don't have to do this right now. Mm-hmm. Most people choose to, because it's easy to just keep a regular working hour schedule. But if that's the case, I can come home early, play with my kid, see you, then put Joe, give her a bath, put her to bed around 7, have dinner 8, then log back on and do an hour or two of work. Or, because there's 2 of us, like 2 of us, me and Sue, working. She has something she needs to do, she can go do that while I play with the kid, and then I need to do something, I'll go play with the kid. There's much less. One of the interesting things about our jobs, when we're busy, we're busy. And when we have deadlines, we have deadlines. But outside of that, there's much less distinction between the work day and other hours. Like the 8 hours that people typically keep in the other 16. And also weekday, weekend.
This job could be any time, any day.
I would say 60% of my work is like that. Yeah. Around broad deadlines, like this needs to be done sometime in the next 72 hours.
Gotcha.
Which hours I use of that 72 to get it done is up to me. So long as I'm like leaving enough time, putting myself in a position where, let's say a question comes, like let's say it's due tomorrow at 9 a.m. If I start it and I think it's going to take me 5 hours, and I start it at midnight and like at 3 in the morning, I'm like, oh shit, I have some questions. I've kind of fucked myself here because the person I need answers from is probably asleep. Mm-hmm. And I haven't given myself enough time to like. So in that instance, I should have done it either during waking hours, or at least gone through it enough, or like done enough of it that I knew that if I had questions I could ask them before I kind of jam myself up there at the end. But independent of those wrinkles, it's kind of up to me to decide which hours I use to do it. And ideally, I'll be doing that when she's sleeping, whether that's a nap or at night.
Talk to me more about y'all's qualitative calculus regarding finding childcare for Joe. I'm sure there's anxiety surrounding that, like who is going to be in our house. What was y'all's thinking in terms of, ultimately you ended up with me.
Right. Okay, so when we were thinking about what's the best situation.
Yeah, what are the options?
So we have, through my job, we have on-site childcare. I think it opens at 7. I think it's 7 to 7, maybe. But I think you're signed up. We didn't go that route, so we didn't go that far down the path.
Is it free?
No.
Oh.
No, it's like, I think it's... probably $2,500 probably a month. Certainly over $2,000. And it's like, the ratio is like 1 adult to 3 kids, and the ratio is different for different age groups. But they're like extremely it's the highest level of quality that like exists for childcare in this case. So it's like, you get reports like, oh, your child took a shit at this time, went for a nap at this time, and had this to eat, and this was the afternoon activity, and like you can get text messages and all that. So it's high quality childcare, but it's like daycare during the work week. It's across the street from my office, and they have a policy that you can stop in anytime. So on the day that I'm slow, on the day that I might otherwise come home early and, hang out with you guys and then do a little bit more work later on, I can, take an hour or two in the middle of the day and just roll over there and see her and all that and check on her, see how she's doing. We ultimately decided not to go that route for a number of reasons. One, we thought it was too early to put her in a daycare. Two, there's nothing better than 1-to-1 in terms of attention and engagement and all that. So even though their numbers are great and they're like, childcare professionals, they're trained in this, it's not quite the same. And ultimately, it wasn't going to cover all of our needs all the time, or at least not necessarily. There will likely come a time when we can't make it home before bedtime, or we couldn't pick her up by whatever the cutoff is, and do our jobs. And those are like, you can let people know you have to do it, but it is kind of a pain. And before we signed up for that and kind of committed to that route, we wanted to do our best to get a sense of what's possible. And so, like, it's one thing to be in a situation where you're working and it's like, I could go home if I wanted to, but like Sue's on leave, so I'm not going to leave right now. Sue's home with the baby, so it's not critical that I get out of here, and therefore I'm going to stay and finish. But I bet if I did have to leave, I could. It's like hard to actually test the hypothesis that I can commit to these times. Now we're in a situation where getting home to relieve you is a lot more critical to us than it would be for me to come home and just, help with bath time when Sue's here. And so this is a good opportunity for us to explore it. So we knew in the beginning that we wanted one nanny, one-on-one with Joe in the house. And we would not have gone the live-in route were it not, these people, the nanny we'd find is local and is going to have family and all that. They have a place to live. And so, yeah, the live-in benefit is more, it's more of a benefit to you than it would be to some other nanny. But again, that's an additional layer of flexibility that like wouldn't exist. So it marginally speaking, but to your original question, like what was our thinking about having a stranger in the house? We were okay with it as a hypothetical, because we kind of always knew that this was the route that we would go, at least for part of her upbringing. But when it came time to actually like put together the post and like what we were going to write about what it was like and, you know, what we're expecting, what the guaranteed hours are, what the hourly rate was, you know, whether we wanted somebody CPR certified or like need to be vaccinated or what have you, must have your own car, right? And a license, right? Whether or not people, if we did go the stranger route, we would have like installed cameras all over. Not all over. We'd have a camera coverage for the house. And, you know, have to be okay with that. That's kind of a weird thing to write in there because who's going to be like, I'm actually not okay with video camera. I, you know, don't operate that way. It's like, oh shit.
Who are you?
Yeah. Why not? Mm-hmm. What are you afraid of? So, yeah, it started to become something that we were getting a little nervous about and not quite sure on. And yeah.
We discussed this originally before she was even pregnant, right? Did we?
Mm-mm. No, I think we talked about it.
No, we did. This was brought up because I remember I was teaching PE in DC in 2017, 2018. She would have gotten pregnant in what, May of 2018?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, school would have been over. I can remember walking through the halls with my class of 30, 14-year-olds being like, dude, hanging out with a baby in a house sounds awesome right now.
So here's my recollection of it, is that Sue and I didn't talk about it before we were living in this house. And we moved in because we had the, like, studio, right? And so it wasn't, at least on our end, it wasn't a conversation until we were here.
I think it was just like a half-joking thing between you and I.
Yeah, probably.
Like, don't worry, bro, you can always live in our basement.
Yeah. I might have said something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember you sent me an actual text. You sent me a text.
Yeah.
Where it was a half-joking text, but the 50% serious part, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
That could work. And I remember I was teaching, and I remember I was dating the girl at the time, too, and I brought it up with her, and it was an issue. Because I'm always throwing out there, like, dude, can we please get out of D.C.? Let's move to California. Mm-hmm. And then I threw this out there to her, once again, half joking, like, oh, Lucas texted me today about being his nanny, ha, ha, ha. And I remember her response was like, wait, what?
Huh.
I'm telling you, dude, it was prior to her getting pregnant. Anyway, it doesn't matter for purposes of the discussion.
Yeah, I know, but now I'm, like, curious about this because...
All right, so we found it.
Yeah.
It began right around our friend Mike's bachelor party in April of 2018. Luke couldn't make the bachelor party because of his extremely lucrative but demanding job. And I think what opened up the conversation was at the bachelor party in Nashville, we took an Uber to downtown Nashville, and our Uber driver was this blatantly racist individual who had no problem telling us all his feelings on minority, including the use of every racial slur under the sun, while there's just four of us like packed into his SUV just trying to get to the bar.
Yeah.
And he's spitting his white supremacist philosophy at us.
Christ.
And so I immediately just pulled up, I've had this idea of wanting to do a podcast since I did my first podcast with my buddy Sam in 2013 in Honduras. And so it's constantly on my mind to talk to interesting people. And so I remember once this dude starts dropping in-bombs left and right, I'm like, I gotta pull out my phone.
Jesus.
Like the world needs to know that people like this exist.
Yeah.
And Luke couldn't make it, so I remember texting him that.
Yeah, you sent me the file.
Yeah, so this is what this is how it went down. We'll do it. We'll play each other. We'll play each other's parts here.
Yeah. March 27th.
Okay. March 27th. Okay, so actually March. Luke Daddy, I say.
I don't text back until April.
Oh, okay. You knew I was fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry. Never mind. April 17th, 2018. Luke says.
Yeah, I said I
But
want.
perhaps it was inspired by.
Yeah, it was.
So I sent the text. I sent the copy, the recording. Luke doesn't respond until a month later.
Yeah.
But he says,
I want to write a book with you. I think it will both do good for anyone who reads it and provide a passive stream of income that will provide a baseline of financial security so as to enable any number of other ventures.
I respond, I also want to...
That's me also.
Okay.
I said, I also want to discuss that podcast episode. I have a few thoughts.
I bet you do. I respond, yo, bro, sorry. I never look at my phone until after school. I was teaching PE at the time. I'm very flattered and totally on board with both of those. There continues to look like a minimum 50% chance I'm going to end up out there, meaning LA, after Serenza's wedding.
I said, I love it, brother. I want to do it either way, but would love to have you close. And I said, are you looking at schools out here in LA? What's the play? I said, also, not sure what the plan is, but once we have a kid...
real quick. So that's over 17th, 18th, 19th of April.
Right.
And then...
Here's 420.
420. 420, Lucas asks...
I said, also, not sure what the plan is, but once we have a kid, we want to hire you as an au pair. You need to teach the kids Spanish. So you have a job in LA about a year from now.
I say, fuck yes, exclamation point. 99% these are my final weeks in the education game, but I'd love to do something like that. I plan on just yoga/personal training next year.
I said, yes. We think that would be perfect with a 2 to 4 day a week nanny game. We basically don't trust anyone, but know how great you would be with your language and health knowledge and also experience with your niece and giant hands and coordination. Basically Odell. Ain't dropping shit.
Ha 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 ha. Dude, I would absolutely love that.
So would we. Job is yours. Only qualification is LA residence. You can even be a live-in if we have the room.
That was prior to y'all having this house.
Before we had the house, before we had the kid.
That was it. Next
We
sentence.
didn't. We weren't pregnant at this point.
No, you weren't pregnant and you didn't even have the house.
Yeah.
So actually, it sounds more serious than joke.
Right.
That sounds like legitimate, like, okay,
Right.
yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
I think when I started bringing it up with my girlfriend at the time and other people, the initial reaction was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And that's when it kind of became more joke.
Yeah.
But then as my life progressed over the last year and a half,
Yeah.
I was like, no, actually that would work out perfectly.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, and I did end up, as I said in that text, I did end up immediately after that school year ended, I just ended up vagabonding as I do
Yeah.
in South America. But my next job, the job I just left when I came back from South America to DC, was personal training, as I stated. But as I kind of knew it didn't work out, wasn't for me. And so I made it out here. And my thinking coming out here, I'm very much like a lost man-child, kind of stumbling my way through adulthood, trying to figure out what is what. But me taking this job isn't just out of like desperation. I don't think I was just having this conversation with my sister, and it was a big sticking point in my last relationship. I think I understand how I live my life, and I think I have an idea of how people view me from the outside, especially people that know me but don't really know me. And quite frankly, I think the only people that really know me are my mom's sisters and my childhood friends, or even my high school and college friends who I lived with. As I said, it may seem like I'm just stumbling my way through adulthood, but there actually is like conscious decision making and direction here.
Yeah.
I'm not just taking this nanny job because I don't have any other options.
Right.
Actually,
You had a job.
plenty of other options. And even in the nanny space, I have other options, as it turns out, over the last couple of months I'm finding. I honestly think, well, first off, it's LA. I've always wanted to live out here. Just the first time I came to visit you out here, and especially the last time I was out here to meet Joe for the first time in the summer.
Yeah.
I told you this when the first night I landed 36 hours ago. It's feeling, dude. I need to make my decisions based on feeling and gut.
Right.
And being here, the first time I stepped onto your property, into this house, it felt right. And quite frankly, dude, I know I'm going to post it on Instagram eventually.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, dude, the being here for the 36 hours I've been back here, and I'm like, can feel myself tearing up even saying this. These past 36 hours are the first time since I was literally, that sounds like ridiculous, but the first time since I was at Machu Picchu in late February, early March of this year, that I haven't felt like I'm swimming upstream against the current of life. And then when I was here in May, for the 3 days, I felt that way. I felt at peace. But I knew in the back of my head, there was, and it's not healthy psychological thinking, but I knew there was these psychological emotional battles that were still eating at me. And in my thinking, the only way to confront them was exposure therapy and swimming against the stream of life. That's the only way I knew how to solve them.
Yeah.
Not in a healthy way where I break them down emotionally and why am I feeling this way. It's no, go punch them in the face.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want to live in DC. I knew going back there was going to present me with a number of emotional challenges in terms of my former romantic relationship. I knew I did not want to work at that job. I'd already personal training, taught yoga. I knew I didn't want to do that professionally. I knew I didn't want to work for this like very bougie, high-end luxury fitness corporation. I knew all of that. But I also knew I would never feel settled with that and wouldn't truly know it in my spirit unless I dove into it.
Yeah.
And I've come back here now, dude, and the reason I'm here is that I honestly, if I were to place a bet on my life right now, how I'm going to spend like the first half of my 40s is doing this, is being a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
Living in a place that is sunny year-round.
Yeah. That's pretty clutch.
Where there are hot chicks everywhere. And where it's LA, once again, this is a generalization, but it's a place where people go to like be creative.
Yeah.
And for lack of a better term, like pursue their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the exact opposite of Washington, D.C.
Right.
And so being here doing this is a very conscious decision on my part.
Right.
So anyway, you sent me that text on 4/20.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm a huge pothead.
Yeah.
Today, Tuesday, marks 1 week of no weed.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just all seems very serendipitous. And I feel in my gut and in my spirit, I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So I had my physical yesterday, annual physical at my doctor's office. And last time I was at the doctor, I brought Joe with me because I was here and Sue's at work and I didn't have any place for her to be. And so she was in the room and the doctor saw her and she was very well behaved. I think she had just woken up from a nap, so she was in a good mood and compliant, didn't freak out or anything. And so my doctor asks me about her, even before that, but now that he's got a face to put to it. And so when I was there for the physical, he took all of my vitals and everything. And when I first started going to see him, it was right after I'd moved out here. And it was, the job's demanding, but my former job was especially demanding. And, I was pretty stressed pretty much all the time. And I had pretty high blood pressure. And, I don't know enough about blood pressure to know what's stress, what's diet, what's exercise, what's genetics. But he said at that first appointment, he's like, you have high blood pressure for who you are and for how big you are and
Age, everything.
Yeah. And he said I could tell you to, not be stressed. But that's a stupid request. Because, on top of everything else, you're just going to have some sort of, meta stress. Be stressed about your job and then also be stressed about being stressed. And what's that to do with your blood pressure? And so he's like, honestly, try to take walks. Try to sleep. But, he's a doctor. So, he's pursued a competitive field, and they work hard and go through residency and all that. And the first part of being, really a lot of parts of being a lawyer is like that. And so he got it. But he was like, your blood pressure's too high. And so each time I go back, that's something we specifically talk about and how it's doing. It's gone down and then up a bit and then down. And this past time, it was good. And it's been good for the last few visits. But in the context of an annual physical, that's what we're explicitly talking about. And this is a very long-winded way of saying, he was like, you seem happier. Like, you seem less stressed. And I was like, yeah, I've been at home. So that made a difference. I'm going back to work. And he's like, oh, how are you feeling about that? And I was like, honestly, way better than I thought I would. Because staying at home is great. You have hard days, and it's like any important job in that it's challenging, and you don't always do the right thing. And, but it's also wildly rewarding. But it's coming to a close. And like, as I transition back to work, I expected to be more distraught. Mm-hmm. I feel great about it. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be good for me. And I think it's going to be good for Sue and I that you're here. And I think it's going to be good for Joe that you're here. And I think it's going to be good for you. Like I said, I've said this a few times when I first kind of brought it up. And every time I've brought it up since, I hope I've said this. I've tried to. I would never have suggested, specifically in the concrete, once Joe is here. Apparently I brought it up like
2 years ago.
Yeah. But I wouldn't have brought it up seriously and wouldn't have pursued the conversation, and then wouldn't have followed up and I wouldn't say pushed you, but explored whether you were interested if I didn't think it'd be a good thing for you too. Because like teaching, like a lot of jobs that are relationship based, if you're not happy, you're not going to do a good job. And it'd be like having a kid in a classroom or a teacher that doesn't want to be there. It's just like, that's a recipe for disaster.
I've been that teacher.
Yeah, me too. And that's how I know, right? And I've seen that teacher, and I've taught alongside that teacher, and you've seen every version of job burnout and lack of interest and lack of investment. And being a stay-at-home parent and being a caretaker a lot of it is teaching, a lot of it is engagement, a lot of it is enthusiasm, positive energy. And if there was any part of me that was like, Alex isn't going to like this, even if I was being completely selfish about this is all about what's best for me and my family. Mm-hmm. Fuck Alex. All I care about is me and mine. If I suspected that you wouldn't enjoy it, or it wouldn't be a positive thing for you, selfishly, I wouldn't pursue it. I also happen to care about you. So it's a twofer.
Yeah.
But if I doubted whether or not this would be positive, I'd be setting everyone up for a negative outcome, because it's you're not going to do a good job regardless of how big your hands are. Whether or not you're going to drop my kid, you got to want it, and you got to want to be it, and you got to want to be good at it. Because there are tough days and all that, and you got to fight through those. And if you don't have that internal motivation and wanting to do something well, the reality is you just won't. Mm-hmm. So, I am happy to hear you say that, and it's more positive than I could have hoped. But I also suspected that would be the case. That I think it's going to be a good thing and a positive thing, and yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited too, dude. It feels very right, and I guess it's just a question of longevity. It's a question of whether I'm going to get discovered. You got me until I become a movie star.
Right, yeah, that's right.
What do you envision these early years of her childhood? How do you want that to go? And then in terms of building this family, growing this family, what does that look like? We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I think you had some interesting thoughts.
The kids? Yeah.
So let's start with Joe.
Let's start with Joe. Like,
what do you want for her life? I guess is the broader question.
I like, when I look at people in my family or like people I know well who are not successful, who are like well-adjusted and like good people and are happy and who are like positive forces in the lives of others. And there are a bunch of different ways to do that. A lot of that to me comes from like confidence and enthusiasm, like confidence in who you are and what you're about and what your passions are, confidence in your ability to pursue your dreams and be successful at them. And then enthusiasm for those passions and pursuits, but also day-to-day life and like, getting up. When Joe was first born and she's moving around.
We can see Joe on the monitor right now. She's wiggling a little bit in her crib.
Shifting.
She knows we're talking about her.
Yeah, her ears were burning. When Joe was just born, she, kids wake up, babies wake up in the middle of the night, and it's hard. It's really hard. It's exhausting. I actually think both Sue and I's career trained us well in that this is just one more really demanding client.
And your prior careers, because y'all both did Teach for America prior.
Yeah, and she's sitting up. I want to get her before she starts crying.
Okay, we can pause. There we go. All right, as you were saying, what was I was asking just what do you want out of her childhood? Like, what do you want her childhood to be and look like? And it sounded like the general theme was confidence and enthusiasm.
Yeah, I mean, this is like my thesis on life. There's a memory chip floating around somewhere. That's my speech, my like best man toast at my older brother's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
That
a memory, like an actual physical memory chip.
Yeah,
I thought you meant just like a figurative memory chip.
No, but maybe it's not floating around. Maybe they just have the clip. I think that they sent it, but it's my speech at my brother's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I love public speaking, but I got super nervous for that, and so I got really drunk beforehand.
That's a good idea, Luke.
Yeah, I was like, I was drinking a lot quickly, and half of what I drank hit me mid-speech. So things probably went off the rails. I was told it went like 15 minutes. I had like paced it out for 6. But the thesis about him, this is one of the things I admire most about my older brother, and plenty of other people too. It's like that whole notion of confidence and enthusiasm, and like those two things, when married in a personality, are fantastic, and they're unlike a lot of other personality traits. I think they can be learned and nurtured and drawn upon, and I hope taught, because that's really comes down, when it comes down to it, that's what I hope for Joe. That she's going to be confident in who she is, what she's about, whatever she's drawn to, whatever she is excited by. I want her to not be ashamed of that or shy away from pursuing those things. Mm-hmm. And a fundamental belief in oneself is the essence of confidence, and, and enthusiasm really just like an energy, a positivity for life and for the world. And what I was saying where we left off was that JoJo, well, when babies are newborn, they're waking up every 2 to 4 hours to eat. And that's, she's sleeping in her room, and she's waking up every 2 to 4 hours for a month. And so you're never sleeping for more than 2 to 4 hours at a time. Yeah, and more importantly, Sue.
Right.
Baby wakes up, she wants to eat. I gotta go pick her up and hand her to Sue. Mm-hmm. My job's done. I'm back to sleep. But, I found, and this reinforces my belief. It didn't start with this. I've always had this view. Life has reinforced this belief along the way. The most accessible example in this context of this conversation is that experience of those first few months. And even now, Joe will wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. She usually sleeps till 6:15. That's her, but sometimes it's earlier. And it can suck if you haven't been sleeping very long, and if you have a lot to do that day, and that, and you hear her cry at 5:30, and the reality is that you have to get up. I don't get it. It's not a choice. It's not, even with obligations like work. When I was talking about Joe as demanding client, the reason that analogy breaks down is that, if you have a particularly demanding client or particularly demanding partner who's on you about something, and you feel it's unreasonable. I don't, and I shouldn't. I don't often, or I mostly don't say fuck it.
Right.
But you can, right? I tell Sue there's this concept of plausibly asleep. This is my ultimate shield for work. Sometimes I'm on, I know I have to be working, we're expecting a draft to come in, or I've told someone I'm going to be up, and that's that. But otherwise, let's say email rolls in at 9:30 p.m. and I'm up and I see it. I say, well, I'm plausibly asleep. This guy doesn't know that I'm not asleep. And, because I know I'm going to be up at, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I can respond to it then. And I'm just I'm not going to do that now. There's no plausibly asleep when it comes to a crying infant.
Right.
Right? I'm not sure if she's, aware of my awareness, in so much as she cries, and she's oh, I know they hear me. Who knows what's going on? Mm-hmm. I don't think she has the concept of me just yet, right? Or identity, her sense of self. But I can't just roll over or put in headphones or whatever. You can't. I suppose one could, but
I'm sure
it is
done.
But it is an order of magnitude vis-a-vis responsibility. That I've never had to deal with, and I don't think you deal with that until there's this thing relying on you. And this is all to say, JoJo starts crying at 5:15 in the morning. What do I have control over? What do I get to decide? What's in my control? It's not whether or not I have to get my ass out of bed. That is decided. That was written. That was decided when we decided to have a child. Mm-hmm. When we decided to become parents. We signed up for,
whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Especially in these early moments. Early months and years. And so I don't have a choice. I can't be plausibly asleep. I have to get up. And so what then is the like universe of my choice? It's my attitude about it. It's, am I going to resent this small creature for being hungry or being scared and alone or being cold or whatever, maybe she, has a poopy diaper.
Shit her pants, yeah.
Right. And she doesn't have words and doesn't understand any of that, and I'm up. But again, I can choose how to approach that. And I think, right, less so about the confidence, more so about the enthusiasm. Like, you decide how you're going to frame the world and your experiences in it. And in that moment, the only thing I can do, or the best thing I can do, and once you apprehend that as this is the best thing I can do, it becomes the only thing you can do, is get excited about getting to play with my daughter for the next 3 hours.
Right.
Because I'm not, plausibly awake until 8 a.m., right? So I have a morning now. With
Plausibly awake.
Right. Plausibly awake, plausibly asleep.
Do you find yourself is that a conscious thing a lot of the times where you're like, ugh, crying baby?
Yeah.
And you're like, all right,
sure,
flip the switch.
I'm like that I have learned to be like that about just about everything. I think,
there's nothing you're naturally enthusiastic about?
No, there's plenty that I'm naturally enthusiastic about, but that's not a choice.
Right.
Right? I am enthusiastic about it. The stuff you have to choose to be enthusiastic about, I think people, and this is that disconnect, or, how it kind of bring it full circle here. People often perceive confidence and enthusiasm each as inherent or something that's kind of innate. Mm-hmm. This person is confident or they are not. This person is enthusiastic or they are not. And like most mental habits, while there may be certain proclivities and inclinations and kind of natural tendencies within everyone to greater and lesser extents, there are also things that you can, in small ways, choose to be. And once they are small choices that you're consistently making, those turn into habits, and then habits really end up being who we are, right? So, to the extent that I had the opportunity to learn at a relatively young age, for any number of reasons, that some things just are, and the only thing you have control over is how you're going to choose to respond to them, think about them, how you're going to choose to approach them, or some things you have to do, and you can either kind of swallow your pride and self-awareness or self-consciousness and just kind of do it with a smile on your face and with energy and with, fake it until you make it confidence. But that's the choice. And I think once you recognize that these are choices that you can make between your ears, and then that are going to then be reflected out into the world, it's less of a choice and more of a of course I'm going to do these things. And so when I think about Josephine and who I hope she becomes, and what I the type of person I hope she grows up to be, or perhaps already is, I don't know. If there's something that I hope to teach her, or I think a better goal would be hope to show her and prove to her, is that confidence and enthusiasm are choices, and that these are things that she can be, and I think I also hope she realizes it's worth being those things, because the world's the world, and you're yourself.
Did anyone teach you those things, or did you come to learn those things? Did you, as you grew into adulthood, were those things explicitly taught to you at any point?
I don't think anyone ever told me in a I know this thing about the world. Here's the secret. Here's this insight. Let me tell you. But plenty of people taught me, right? And again, in the best case scenario, this is how JoJo learns, not by somebody else sitting her down and kind of talking her through all this. You can reinforce the lesson that way, but ultimately, you live an example that way.
Yeah, you can't only teach those characteristics.
Right.
So, yeah, you have to live them and be them. But yeah, I think you mentioned this. The good news is those are both things that you can learn to be.
Yeah, yeah, and more importantly, choose to be.
Yeah,
and that choice, it's empowering. I think if you see it as a true choice, I think some people are like, no, it's choice, but it's like not a free choice, or they don't feel like, it's actually a choice. It's a choice that some people have, but other people don't.
Confidence is a tough one.
Confidence is a tough one.
Because, I mean, it is a fake it till you make it skill in some ways. But ultimately, that's a facade, and I think will collapse. Really true confidence, takes work.
It does take
work to, be... no, you don't have, a lot of, holes in your game, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I think that's where true confidence comes from. Or... Yeah. I think there's also a don't give a fuck confidence. Mm-hmm. A don't give a fuck kind of attitude that's confident. Mm-hmm. Confidence takes work, man.
Sure. I think there are two sides to it. First, it's...
You got a bottle opener?
Yeah. First, it's...
Daddy's getting turned. Thanks, bro.
And I think this is a helpful strategy in general. If you find yourself worrying about something or self-conscious about something, what are you actually afraid of?
Mm-hmm. Dude, it's so funny you mentioned that. If you don't mind me chiming in here,
no, please.
I consider myself a confident person, and I think that's very ironic, especially in the last 5 years, because in a lot of ways, I feel like my life has kind of gone off the rails in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But, dude, I'm telling you, I feel confident. I feel very unconfident in a lot of ways. I feel very incompetent because I don't have direction in my life. But when I boil it down to, the core of who I am, it's kind of like what we were just talking about this in the, with your wife in the kitchen just now about, what would you do if, society collapsed? Mm-hmm. I feel totally confident in that sense. A lot of that's due to, physical characteristics and things like that. But, dude, I'm telling you, when you boil it down to its core, my confidence stems from the fact that I've been to extremely low, dark, and desperate psychological places.
Yeah.
And eventually, I have made a decision, and I made this decision, honestly, probably in the last 5 to 7 years. And it's something I have to remind myself of regularly. And this sounds dark, but I have to remind myself, you're not offing yourself. You're not taking yourself out of this game. You're not committing suicide.
Sure.
I've been multiple times throughout my life, I've been to a point where that was a serious contemplation. Mm-hmm. And when that's the standard to surpass,
yeah,
then everything's a W.
Right. Right. No, I think...
And there's a very genuine confidence that comes from that.
Totally.
Because even when shit seems like it's hitting the fan or things are going wrong, there's this confidence nah, I'm good, man.
Right.
I'm here, I'm breathing, I'm alive. Right. I'm going to wake up tomorrow, I woke up today, we're all good.
Right.
That's a very bizarre kind of confidence, but I'm telling you, that's where where confidence stems from for me is nah, dude, things are going to be all right, and you can handle this.
No, that's absolutely right.
I'm sure your standard for Joe is probably a little higher than that.
No, not necessarily. I think, perspective is important, and perspective comes from struggle and, relative comparison.
Yeah. Has raising her been easier or harder than you anticipated over these first 10 months?
So this is a cop-out answer. It has been both easier and harder. I think...
Definitely cop-out.
I think, yeah. So here's how, though.
Okay.
I can't answer how.
Are you Tindering over there right now?
No, I don't.
I see you swiping.
I'm swiping through audiobooks because I was looking for a title in my library. I haven't listened to it.
What's your age range on Tinder?
I don't have...
Like, do you go under 23?
When I was on Tinder,
He's going to answer the question.
I think the rule that I followed was half my age plus 7.
Half age plus 7. Yeah, it's the rule everyone should follow. I can't say, salute, bro. You're looking for more? I'm looking to cheers. Yeah, that's the rule everyone should follow, but come on, I mean, sometimes rules are meant to be broken, dog.
Salute.
When was the last time you were on Tinder?
I was in Chicago. It was right after I started law school.
So you're 25? 26?
Fall of 2013. I was born in 1987. Fall, I moved out there in late August after my birthday. I was 26.
Half your age plus 7, 20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I did not. I may have matched with, but I did not
pursue any
spend
19-year-olds
with anybody who was still in college, actually.
No, you can talk about. I'll just pause real quick, bro, and we'll talk about it off the record. And pause. Go ahead. Tell me about the 18-year-olds.
I don't remember. No such knowledge. I do not recall.
What are you looking at? We have a podcast to record. By the way, y'all, our buddy Mike is the exact same way. Lucas is the worst multitasker on the planet.
There's a book that I have in my Audible library called Can't Hurt Me by this guy, Dave Goggins, who is a...
David Goggins, a man. Yeah. He's the world pull-up champion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
That's all I know about him. He's used to be like... that's not all I know about him. I know a little bit about him. He used to be like severely obese. And then I think literally he just like, I don't remember the exact story, but he just came to some realization one day. I think maybe he was trying to join the military. And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, look at yourself. And I think that was the impetus to pull himself together. But now he's just like...
He was a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. Now he's just like...
marathoner.
Yeah, he's just a legendary physical specimen, and it's purely just like mind.
Okay.
He's the purest example of like, you could be in the... Just from a physical standpoint, but I think this is applicable to all areas of life. Like, you could be in the worst possible position, in his case, physically, and you can make that decision. Like, no, okay, I'm pulling myself out of this rut. And now this guy is a world pull-up champion, runs like a zillion, literally, I think like hundreds of miles at a time. I think he runs for days at a time. Does all kinds of like insane endurance and physical feats that are purely mind over matter. Like, there's no genetic gift here.
Right.
David Goggins, he's the man.
So I was distracted during that time on my phone when I was not swiping Tinder. There were no 18-year-olds involved now or previously. I'm not even sure what Tinder is.
Lucas introduced me to Tinder in the summer of 2013 at his family's home outside of Portland, Oregon. First time I'd ever heard of it.
Dude, no.
That's a true story.
That is a true story. When we were talking about this, when you were talking about being in a dark place and how now, or perhaps even at the moment, the recognition of the depths that you were in was simultaneously this incredible asset that you have to draw on for the rest of your life. And I knew enough about this guy to have downloaded this book and had like logged in my memory that this particular individual had written a book about this concept. And I wanted to look up the title, and then when I saw it, and I was like, then I pulled up his Wikipedia, and that is when you called me out. So.
Oh, just now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, David Goggins, man.
And yeah, I have so many fucking books that I've picked out or purchased or downloaded or what have you, and have either never started or have read part of.
Yes, this entire room we're in Luke's guest house now, which is my new home. This fucking place is filled with books before. They're here. Where are they? They're under my bed.
The boxes.
They're under the bed.
Yeah.
Tons of books.
Yeah.
Dude, take a ballpark guess at how many books I've read in my life.
Me?
Guess. Me?
No. I know that. I'm just saying, how can I guess how many books you've read? So I don't mean to be a dick. Or
you can read? It's under 50 for sure. I would probably put it in the range of 20 to 30. I read my first book freshman year of college. I couldn't read, dude. This goes back to the, and this is, I don't know, nothing's off topic. This goes back to the suicide thing, dude. I could not read until, freshman year of college, really. I mean, I knew how to read. I knew to fucking sound out the words. But I would have these OCD quirks, man, where I'd have to reread the words 100 times, reread the line 100 times, swallow saliva when there were I's on every dotted lowercase I, on every period. I would have to go through a mental ritual. I'd have to check the numbers of the pages. Dude, it would take me 2 hours to read a page. And it was just eventually, it would be 3 a.m, and I'm in AP US history, and I'm supposed to read 3 chapters, and I'm gotten through 3 pages, and I was like, well, I guess I'll just be winging it on the test tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that didn't change until freshman year of college.
Yeah.
So, dude, this is why, in a lot of ways, I think I've become so obsessed with podcasts, starting in 2010 when podcasts really started kind of emerging, and now they're just ubiquitous.
It's funny you say that, but keep going.
Because that's how I learned to gather information. That's how I survived academically. Right. I was a successful student in high school, not nearly as successful as I should have been, but I was in honors and AP classes.
Yeah.
I was probably towards the lower end of that group because the only thing I could do was just show up and listen. I was not gathering information any other way.
Right.
It was just showing up to class and hoping I fucking gather enough information via whatever is being discussed in class that I could then, regurgitate in the test. And so when these podcasts started showing up and I could just download, information on topics I'm interested in, and I didn't have to go through, because even still to this day, dude, there's still little OCD things that, that trip me up. And when I could get information just shot straight into my ears, it was a godsend.
Yeah.
That's why I am, so on board with this medium.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. There is a real democratization of information now. You want long form, information journalism, short form. You want tweets. You want podcasts. You want audiobooks. You want,
in some ways, there's
YouTube videos DIY.
In some ways, there's no excuse not to be informed, but in other ways, it's almost even harder to be informed because there's so much information, and you kind of have to sift through it all. You would know more about this. Do you think this whole fake news concept is a real thing?
What do you mean by fake news?
It's very you could easily go out there and just make something up and present it in a good looking format and put it out there on the web, and somebody's going to believe it.
Are you talking about
you could create lucasherald.com, and you could just come with bullshit websites or articles and churn out all kinds of garbage, and as long as it looked reputable, you could potentially start
you can deceive people.
Yeah.
Propaganda is effective. Disinformation works. That's why, it's been utilized pretty much throughout any context in which the stakes matter. The most obvious is certainly politics and all that. But Yeah, it's...
You think there's no excuse not to be informed?
Yeah, I think there's no excuse not to be informed. I think, like, I've always thought that...
By the way, this is, you asked me 2 seconds ago how things are working out here in the guest house. This motherfucker is the one major flaw. Jiminy Cricket up here on the roof. I found a few of his friends and I murdered them immediately.
Yeah.
But he's here. Actually, if I go like this, he'll shut up. Wait, he comes back 2 seconds later.
The hope is to finish this place. We're going to finish the garage first. Depending on the timing, I'm sure. I mean, that'll be done, I'm hoping, in like 2 months. Hopefully Sue just lets me pull the trigger on it. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to convince her for like a couple months to be like, look, it's going to cost $40,000. Let's just do it.
Whoa, for real? You think that's what it's going to cost?
So I could go to, like, say, Carlos and be like, look, Carlos, here's $25,000. Get this project done. You can go to, like, Home Depot.
Dude, if you ever go as $25,000, you would fucking pass out. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
So Carlos, first time I came out here, we're referring to this guest house once again. It's one room. It's a bedroom.
Yeah.
With a bathroom. But it's attached to a garage.
Yeah.
Which is serving as like storage / laundry room.
Right.
The plan is to keep the bedroom and turn the garage into like an office den. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's cool. I fucking love it in here.
Yeah, we are going to finish this also. So this is...
Yeah, it's like... It seems...
Redo it, I guess. We're going to try to keep the aesthetic. At least that's my position. Is that this is a very charming, like, mid-century, late, 60s, 70s vibe.
Yeah, it is. It's like wood paneling. I really love it in here, man.
It's a fantastic environment.
When I've said this to Lucas, but I'll say it now on the podcast.
What'd you do with Big Bill?
They're all coming down. They're over there. I can't have things. I can't have fucking things on the wall.
Not with that attitude.
Jack and Bobby over here are coming down too. I'm gonna take them down already. And these fucking Nina and the Pence and Santa Maria over here are coming down as well.
Oh, dude.
I can't have things on the wall, man. It's minimalism. It's nothing. I was gonna put maybe a map of LA.
Okay. Pretty sure I have like a map of LA in my like drawer somewhere that you have been meeting.
I might put something like that. But yeah, when I first came out here in May to visit, dude, I'm telling you, I came in here and it's just a feeling. It's like nice and cool. There's a breeze. I can't describe it, man. I just felt at home. And I slept so soundly that first night.
It's great out here.
There's been a few like Airbnbs I've stayed at throughout my travels. One particularly in Cusco, Peru, where like I just get in it and I'm like, whoa. Is there like a ghost in here with me or something?
Like a gas leak.
Yeah, you go like a high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that wasn't in the description. And that's how I felt when I first came in here. And yeah, this is all I need, man. This is all of the space I need in the world.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly, I could live if I had a stovetop in a mini fridge, I would be totally self-sufficient in here. But then I would have no social interaction. Just be here all day. Anyway. Where were we? Oh, I said, did you have something else you want to comment on? Because I remember.
I had a few things.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, real quick. So finishing this thing's going to cost $40,000?
This thing? No, the
garage.
We did the garage, this room, it would probably be about $70,000 or $80,000.
Damn.
We were going to talk about Carlos, though.
Oh, yeah.
Carlos.
So Carlos, Lucas referenced giving Carlos $25,000. The first time I came out here, that same time when I felt the energy of this room, and of this, I think just city in general, we went to Home Depot. We were just going to do some work in the backyard. Yeah. And we were going to get ourselves an illegal immigrant to do some work. And we found Carlos. Did we even approach Carlos, or he didn't approach us?
He approached us. We don't ask about immigration status. These are independent contractors and arm's length transactions. My understanding is that they...
We love Carlos. I'm all for it. Dude, I'm all for... I'm an open borders guy. I don't even like the term immigration. I think we're all... members of the human family, and we're sharing the same giant rock, and we should all be allowed to go to whatever part of the giant rock that we want to.
Yes, I agree with you.
So Carlos is home.
Yeah.
Carlos is not a legal immigrant. Carlos is just a member of... He's an earthling like you and I.
Yeah.
But he's a legal immigrant.
Yeah. But
we don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
And he's the man, though.
Again, would never ask someone's immigration status. Would never ask what kind of taxes they're paying. He's not an employee. He's an independent contractor. And, I assume he's bonded, insured, and all of that. Mind your business. Certainly not mine. So
we found Carlos in the parking lot of Home Depot.
We went to Home Depot with the intention of
buying some flowers and buying a human,
and procuring the services of an independent contractor and
we got
arm's length transaction. And I was relying on you and your language skills, and also your outgoing personality, and love of
strangers,
Latin America, and strangers, to help identify somebody. But before I could really say, "All right, go get him, Tiger," Carlos approached us and asked if we needed help planting flowers, and I said no, but I do have some work.
We got the flowers, Carlos.
Yeah. We have some
That's the extent of our landscaping skills.
Right. These are going to be fine, but we do need your help. And Carlos came to the house.
Oh, hold on a second. Let's not fucking skip the details of the story. Carlos hopped in the back seat.
Yeah.
His English is, all right.
I think he thinks it's better than
That's a good point. He does think it's better than it is, which is awesome.
Yeah. No, you know what? If I could summarize Carlos's relationship with English, it is independent of his language skills. It is the quintessential exemplar of confidence and enthusiasm.
There we go. Yeah, way to tie it together,
He
Luke.
just goes for it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, smile and nod. Yeah. Sometimes I say, what? Can you spell it?
He's super outgoing, man.
Oh man,
I love the guy, man. He's such an inspiration to me to be born. He's from El Salvador, to be born in this tiny patch of dirt, with very little opportunity in El Salvador. I don't know. He's been in the U.S. for a while now, but I'm sure El Salvador wasn't great when he was growing up there, and it certainly isn't great now. And the dude, I'm clearly had the balls just to come up here, however he got up here, and dude, just come to a country like this and to be what I'm almost certain is, illegal and, potentially on the verge, although in LA probably not, but, theoretically on the verge of deportation at any day. The dude is just has a great attitude and is very enthusiastic and very outgoing. And I don't know, man, he's more American than the two of us.
Yeah.
But
American
I love that
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And he hopped in that back seat that first day, and with his, outgoing personality, immediately started striking up conversation. I think I would talk to him in Spanish. He would respond to me in Spanish, but then I think he also wanted to show that he can speak English too, which he can. Probably not as good as he thinks, but he can put sentences together. But he immediately starts going off on how 9/11 was an inside job. And I was like, whoa, Carlos. I don't know. I don't even know how he got on the topic. I guess I was just probably asking him, what he thought about America and, what his experience has been. Maybe, he's been here for, I think, over 20 years.
Oh, he's been here for 40. Because he came here as a teenager, right?
Oh, for real?
Yeah,
he's in his 50s.
57.
Yeah, for sure he's in his 50s. We got on that, and I was like, hell yes. We got this. I'm glad we got this guy.
Yeah, oh my God.
But he's so... do you think he has the skills to do this?
No. But that's the thing. Is I don't want him to do it.
Right.
I want him to use what he knows about this particular labor market to identify folks with the skills to do it, to buy the raw materials.
Middleman.
Yeah, to basically be like, look, I could go out there, but these guys immediately are going to look at me and be like,
right,
not take advantage of me, but you know, they'll
take advantage of you.
Well, who's taking advantage of who?
Yeah,
but
yeah, good point.
But
there's something called a gringo tax, bro, and you find it anytime you travel in Latin
America. I pay it every time he comes over here, and I'm happy to pay it because dude fucking earns it.
Yeah, he busts his ass.
Yeah, but yeah, I would much rather than paying like this general contractor we have or have used, who like I'm pretty sure isn't legit either. Let's just be real. We have.
Is that the dude that did your kitchen?
Yeah,
kitchen looks great.
Yeah, dude, he's if I could describe this dude, he's Israeli Javier Bardem.
Oh, damn,
dude, he's
really.
Like, yeah, I found myself attracted to him.
Don't lose sleep around him.
Dude, I didn't. Like, seriously, I didn't. Until it was, until she was 8 months pregnant. It was like,
yeah, he's off limits now.
And I was like, all right, yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then, so for the longest time, I would be like, I talked to Ariel today. Like, he's, well, and she was like, why do you keep going on about this guy? And then she finally...
I'm not gay, what are you talking about?
And she finally met him. And was like, Ariel's great. Ariel's great. And he also said, he's like, oh, stay away from me, like, anytime.
Stay away from me?
Well, he's saying this to
I cannot control myself.
No, but he's saying was like, basically, like, every time I stand... He's like, whatever the water you're drinking, like, I don't want any... Because Sue's pregnant, like, very pregnant. And he has 6 kids. And, like, going on 10. He's like, anytime... Oh, what he said was, I don't want my wife to meet you. Because anytime she stands next to a pregnant woman, she gets pregnant. I was like...
That's how potent this guy is.
Ariel, that's a little bit of projection, bro. Like... You bear a little bit more responsibility than you're letting on here. But he literally
this works.
is Israeli Javier Bardem. He's
right.
like the most... Anyway.
Have you seen his wife?
No.
I want to see his wife.
Well. Anyway, you'll see him because he's going to come by the house probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we got to do... So, he is excellent. He has a good team. Does really good work. It's not Carlos prices, but
right.
It's also not like
right.
And so he's great, and he did a great job, and like but he's like setting up these inspections with the city.
Yeah.
And when I told my general contractor, hey, by the way, the electrician's got some city inspectors coming by. They need to sign off the electrical work before you guys close up the walls. He like freaked out. He's like, "Oh, what? When are they coming?" Like,
city government, ICE.
And he's like, "Can you tell him to tell them that like I've set up separate inspections and like, and
he did not want any."
Well, I don't know how much he's interfacing with the city or
right.
like, what he's getting inspected or what he has to. And once again, these are independent contractors. This is not like transaction. What do I know about construction? I don't ask a lot of questions. Mind your business. Like, it's not.
I'm just looking to beautify my home here.
Look, man. These were introductions. So all of this is to say, I would much rather. There's obviously anytime any work is getting done, someone's making money off it, right? There's a surplus. Buy something for $1 and sell it for
right.
$2. If you put in whatever your labor, your special touch. And the way in which this whole industry works is like there are pretty healthy margins on certain types of things, but if you have like the know-how and a little bit of like work ethic, you can get a lot done real quickly for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do is basically say to Carlos, I'm going to spend $25 doing this thing. I'm going to give it to that guy. Or if you think like you can get it done for cheaper and like find the right guys or know the right guys, I'm going to write you a check for $24,000.
Finder's fee.
He's my general contractor. You know, you get this work done, get it done at a high level. Mm-hmm. The electrical is going to be inspected. The gas and plumbing, I'm going to, like, anything that could kill anyone.
So all that has to be expected by the city? This is where, like, my whole libertarian anarcho-capitalist, like, philosophy kind of falls apart. Because that's all government, right? I mean, it should be, if you're having electrical work done in your house, the government, if you're doing shit totally by the book, someone from the city should come in and check it out. That's how it's supposed to be done. Probably. To make sure it's not all faulty and you're not going to burn down the neighborhood. Yeah,
burn down like a lot more than that. Down here, everything's so dry.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And look, there was a fire, was it last year? It killed like 86 people.
There's a fire here every year, it seems like.
Yeah, but it was the deadliest fire, like wildfire in U.S. history.
I thought that was up north. That was here?
It was California.
Oh, okay, yeah. The campfire?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Yeah. And so, like, I on the one hand, like, absolutely agree with that, and like think I want the inspectors, because you know the first people are going to die in that fire is me, my family, like, you know, or let's be real, it's you back here, right? So
fucking smoke alarms, like hanging off the fucking wall.
Yeah, right. We're not even pretending. And so like that shit I want to get done by the book, but when it comes to like throwing insulation in and like throwing up drywall,
yeah. Whatever. Let Carlos and his boys take care of it.
Right. Right. And so, yeah, that's my thinking on that.
Yeah.
So,
how do y'all do finances? Do y'all just have all your money pulled into one fucking thing and this is just like our bank?
It's a mess, yeah. So it's like it's a mess.
Y'all make relatively the same money?
Yeah. Well, okay. So, I actually don't know what I make. I haven't known for, well...
What?
So when I accepted my job out of law school, this is all like public information, so I'm not like trying to, you know, big time anybody, but like...
Your salary's public information?
Anybody in big law is public information. If you're in this industry that pays lockstep everywhere... It's kind of this, I mean, so law generally is a cartel, like a definitional cartel, in that it's the foxes guarding the hen house. The people who say who can become a lawyer are the lawyers.
Uh-huh.
And so it's in lawyers' interests that it's hard to become a lawyer. And not anybody, if you tried to practice law, I can teach you everything I know and then some. You're a savant. Give you all my textbooks.
I'm a natural.
Give you access to all the resources that I have. You're practicing law at like the top 5%, because there are a lot of shitty lawyers out there. To be honest with you. You're going to jail. Well, you're not going to jail. You're gonna be fine. You can't. You can't practice law if you're not a licensed attorney. To be a licensed attorney, you got to be a member of the bar. To be a member of the bar, you got to pass these tests. To sit for the tests, you got to do these things. California is actually one of the only states that allows people who didn't go to an accredited law school to sit for the bar and become a lawyer.
Catch me if you can shit.
Well, no, that was he lied about having gone to law school.
Your salary is public information.
I'm going to look it up online because that's how it works.
You about to reveal your salary on the podcast?
It's online.
Dope!
Yeah, if you Googled...
Lucas Artaiz salary.
If you Googled big law salary.
So really, it's like if you work for one of these major firms, everyone's making the same money based on your position?
I Googled big law salary. I'm going to the website.
But you make more than that number.
Well, that number.
Oh, this is based on experience?
It's based on when you graduate law school.
Wow, so this just is like standard.
Everywhere. Well, not everywhere. There is a tier or a cabal, depending on your there is a collection of law firms, big law, that pay what we call market. So you can find, anybody can find, what we make.
16? You guys are on 16?
And what our bonus is.
And she's the same?
She's 2014. But yes.
She's big law.
Yes.
She makes more than you then.
So what I was going to say is, you said y'all make about the same. And I was about to say, yes, we do. But we don't. What do I make on there?
You make 220 plus 25. 245.
It's actually 50.
Bonus?
Yeah, so I'm third year bonus.
270.
Yeah.
Your third year bonus. Got you.
Okay.
So she's fifth year bonus.
So Sue is 2014. So what does she make?
280.
Okay. So that is, and I made 220. 60 grand more than I do. So the delta between what she makes and what I make is double what I made when I was teaching.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Okay. So
yeah.
That's how much more she makes than I do. On a salary basis. And her bonus is
80. Whoa.
80. So she makes $90,000 more than I do a year. But when you said, you guys make the same, my response was, yeah, basically. Right, like
But the difference between was all of the money we made in all of our years teaching.
Correct. Right. So, like, that is a microcosm of our attitude towards money. Around, like, does this money all go to the same place? Like, how does it...
Right.
I don't really know where all of her money goes.
Right.
My money goes... I put $8,000 in a shared account that we have, and then whatever else I have, which I think is like another $4, goes into like my account. But all of like my credit cards and everything come out of that account rather than our shared account. Whereas all her credit cards, I think, come out of the shared account. But all of my credit cards include like the Amazon card, the Southwest card, like cards that we share. As well as things like car payment. Well, at this point, just that one car payment. But other things like car insurance, right? She pays for health insurance. We're on her health insurance at work, so that's where that goes. But I pay for like all of our utilities, and I don't know where the money goes.
Right.
It goes into a number of accounts, all of which have, I feel like a dick. Because I know
no, it's great. This is the opposite of being a dick. Being a dick is being like, I don't know, bro. Like, yeah, I mean, I make good money, man. That's being a dick.
Yeah.
Not being a dick is like, nah, dude, this is what I make.
So that's what.
And you work your ass off for it. These guys are working fucking constantly. But these guys, Luke and his wife, Sue.
Yeah.
They deserve the money they make. Do you ever, like, dude, this is back to OCD shit, like, I have, like, literally $500 to my name. So at the end of every month...
You got more. It's not in your account, but you've, if I was responsible, I would have gone to the bank by now.
Whatever. Yeah, Luke, him and his wife pouring in over $300K a year. They don't even fucking pay me out here.
Each.
Bullshit. Each.
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke.
I'm over here fucking... slaving night and day for nothing. Dude, at the end of every month, I will go through and look at every single purchase I have made.
Dude.
I'm assuming you do not do that.
No.
So there really
for
could be...
a bunch of different reasons, but no.
I could be, like, So there could be, like... I could have access to your account and be in, like... Buying shit on Amazon. And you would have no idea. Like, you just gave me your credit card. Right? I could link that. I could put that on my. I could put that on my Amazon account and just buy all the shit I want. I could go out to bars. I don't spend that much money, and you would never know.
Well, I would eventually. Like I said, I would figure it out. But
no, you never review your accounts.
I periodically do.
Oh, okay.
Every once in a while, I'll get online and be like, I thought I had a little more money in that account, and then I'll be like, I'll pull up all the transactions or whatever, and I'll be like, yeah, huh? Yeah,
that's what I do. Me too.
Okay, all right, well, I guess.
Yeah, no, I do the same thing.
This is where I'm at.
It's just, different scales. I'm like, $300? I thought I had $500. What are you looking at now, fucker? Pay me later, bro. Pay me by fucking being attentive.
All right, so what I was going to say about everything, about, like, the paychecks or... So we have like a number of accounts. It's the kind of thing where it's like money to me. There's always been such a disconnect between money when I was little, and it was like this was a kind of penny pinching, whatever. There was no like transition from like having no money to like having big money.
That's true, yeah. You went from being raised relatively poor, to college, to making $30,000 a year,
right?
With
student loans and education payments, and I bought a car, which was a dumb decision when I started TFA. Like, I didn't have any money. I never had any money, and then
all of a sudden you graduate law school and you're making money.
Yeah, and I, way more money than I ever thought. I have no idea.
Yeah, you're like an NBA player in the late 90s right now who just got drafted out of high school. You have so many fur coats, it's ridiculous, dude. You live in LA. I don't know why you have all these mink coats.
Yeah.
And the Rolls Royce you just got seems a little ostentatious.
Yeah. Well,
Sue drives a Prius.
I know.
And you just bought me a Hyundai.
Hyundai.
I
don't know. Hyundai. Yeah, sounds right.
Hyundai. When
H-Y.
Hyundai.
I think.
I don't know. You said you never answered what was easy and hard about what was easier and harder than you anticipated about raising Joe. What's been easier? What's been harder?
Way easier. So it kind of comes back to like I knew it would be tedious, like
I know now.
Yeah. Like you're not having conversation. Like she.
We don't do a lot of talking.
It's so funny. There's so many times when it's like, I'll be like lying on the couch, like trying to, get caught up on the news or write an email or something while she's playing, and then she like comes over, and I feel bad because like I'm clearly on my phone, and she's like, "What's he doing?" And I feel like,
Daddy.
Yeah. And yeah. And I'll like start to play with her, and I'll like grab a blanket, put it over my head, and then like pull it off. I'll like while it's over my head, I'll be like, "Where's JoJo? Like, where did she go?" Blah, blah, blah. And then pull it off and be like, "There she is. There's JoJo." And JoJo laughs.
Right.
And it's like the best.
Right.
And she like grabs the blanket and like goes, like just pushes it into my face.
Right.
Like she wants me to do it again.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I just like did this peekaboo thing.
Right.
And she loved it.
Right.
And she wants me to do it again. And this is like, this is awesome.
Uh-huh.
Because I felt like a moment ago I was being bad parent.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't engaged. And now I, did the first thing that came to my mind, and she loves it, and she wants to engage with me this way. Well, she wants to play peekaboo all fucking afternoon, man. Yes. 25 minutes later, she is still laughing at, where's JoJo? There's JoJo. The same laugh, and she's the and it's like, all right, I'll do it again. I feel like, a director who's not giving enough, instruction. It's like, no, that wasn't it. Again. And I'm like, take 27. And I'm like, what? I'm not really sure
if I have anything else.
Right. This is...
I feel like I'm doing the same thing.
And then, at some point, she just moves on.
Right.
And, laughs.
Yeah.
And then just, crawls away.
Right.
And I was like, oh, all right. That's cool.
It's a relief, but you also kind of feel bad.
Right.
Am I not funny anymore?
Right. Seriously. What we were talking about earlier, though, about the remodel, I think that's how we started talking about money.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, earlier we were talking about JoJo is just a more demanding client, except, I'm never plausibly asleep.
Yeah.
Or, I can't pretend I'm not plausibly, or, and how it's also true that, TFA is harder than my job now. For sure. It's not close. And I get paid...
7 times as much?
Yeah.
6 or 7 times
right.
as much?
And because...
Oh, shit, more than that. Fuck, what am I talking about? My math is garbage. 10 times as much.
No.
Almost. Sue does.
Yeah. Sue does, yeah. Sue.
I mean, what? You're just 2 years behind her.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. Granted, take home is different, tax prep, but yeah.
I mean, you got tax in Phoenix, and you got tax teaching too. Not as much, but
different. Yeah. But
wait, hold on real quick. That thing only the pay scale you just showed me stopped at 2010. Does it keep going up?
So there's a point in being a lawyer where you either become partner, or they force you out, or you step into a role that isn't really an associate anymore. You're of counsel, and it's different. You go up, but not the same pace.
Not the same pace number-wise? Financially?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if an absolute dollar amount raised per year versus a percentage.
You've made it very clear you have no idea how much money you're making.
Dude, I don't know. So here's what I was going to say, though.
Do you invest in... Sorry, go ahead. I have so many questions.
What I was going to say is... This sounds whatever. I don't appreciate... But, I know what it is in general, and I also know what it is to people who don't have as much, because that was my life, and so I don't. But to me and to us, what is money? When I think about redoing the garage, so we have an office or more living space for JoJo, playroom for JoJo. Think about redoing this place so it's a better living space. Isn't that what money's for?
Yeah.
And so when I hear it's $70,000, or I get college to do it for $30,000, or I hire some more reputable construction firm to do it at the high end for $90,000, we have enough. We have more than enough. We've had more than enough for a while now, and maybe that's short-sighted. Maybe that's I have an opportunity to retire at 45, or invest in this or that, or take care of other members of my family, and I don't mean to say that I don't see that being flippant about budgeting or money is perhaps short-sighted. But, there's this trade-off. We talked about this when we were talking about money when I was growing up. There's this trade-off between stress and penny pinching and all that, and like maybe spending more money or perhaps wasting more money, but also not worrying and not fussing over those details. And I think you have this spectrum of like being by the book or straight-laced or not giving a fuck. And like there's a trade-off. Maybe I come off as this or that, but I'm happier because I don't give a shit. And I think, these are all the clothes you own.
Yep.
Yeah. And like, some people might like
She points to 4 t-shirts.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure all the pants on that shelf belong to me. And like,
yeah, but you get those back.
Right. And like there's this there's the trade-off between like worry and happiness, but on the other hand, like doing things a certain way that is either socially acceptable or by the book or most efficient or whatever it is. There are these spectrums and trade-offs and things that like, the fuck am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Like trying to find a better deal on.
Mm-hmm.
We need the space. Like it's whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, shit, dude. I don't fucking know what. I don't think it's right or wrong, but I love your perspective on it. And I don't think it comes off as whatever you're concerned about. However, it's coming off. I think it comes off as exactly how someone should view money. You work hard. You're being compensated for how hard you work. And you're able to support your family that way, and you're not... the most important point you make, dude, is like... It is and you know this, and I know this, based on our upbringing, it's invaluable not to worry about it.
Yeah.
It is fucking valuable.
Yeah. You only have so many fucks, and like...
Yeah.
What are you gonna spend them on? So, yeah. And that's how I think about all of it. Like... I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. Every once in a while, I'll be like, "Did we close that account?" Or like, "Did we?" And I like log in, and find. It's like, it's not like finding $20. This is real money that I know
right.
that I help. Like,
right.
It's a handful of accounts that I haven't thought about, or like, that whether it's like a CD or like muni bonds or something. It's like,
do you
I feel like I'm more of a squirrel than like a,
financial manager, dude? You
fucking hiding.
See, it's funny. I love your approach to it, but if I were in your position, it is not my approach I would take at all, because I'm so fucking OCD about all like everything. Right. I would know where everything is.
Yeah.
Do you have like do you invest on your own at all?
So we have a number of like investment accounts or 401k accounts.
A number of them?
Yeah.
Like I assume you have 401k through work?
We each do.
Uh-huh.
We have a bunch of tax advantaged like accounts that are like HSA, FSA, like childcare. It's all like money that you can put tax free into certain accounts and then draw on for specific purposes. We have a...
How did this happen so fast?
I mean, like, we... what are you gonna... So, what did we say? What do we make, like, now? I want to say it's, like, $650 between us, maybe?
Yeah.
Well... I used to live on 35.
Yeah. 32 was my first contract in TFA.
All right. So let's say it's 30, 35. Call it 6 times that. 200. Then there's another $450,000. right? So, like, we pay a lot of taxes, and, like, in the bracket that we're in...
You live in California, too.
It's a higher percentage than we're paying, and it's not really like that, but it's kind of like that. It's the kind of thing where every month...
I know. I'm not talking about the quantity of just. I'm not talking about the aggregate number. I'm talking about all these little accounts. Are they just like automatic things that just happen through work?
So it's like through work. Sign up for benefits. We'll see like a certain like a bank will be advertising a certain rate for a certain type of account. We'll open up a savings account here or there, or
Gotcha.
Just move money around.
Gotcha.
But it's like if you had
how much stuff you got offshore, like how much stuff you got in the Caymans.
Nothing. With a chunk of money in like Bitcoin.
Why are you winking at me?
In Bitcoin. And
you do have money in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Tight. When did you do that?
1 year. It was like right before one of the big crashes.
Oh, good.
It was like when it was on its way down. So, right now I think we're about break even. But I've basically promised myself we're not going to even think about it until like 2022.
How much Bitcoin are we talking about? Dollar. Like, what did you invest? Tens of thousands? Thousands?
Not tens, but 10-ish, maybe more. I don't know.
Crazy.
But okay, so look, if I handed you say $22,000 on
cocaine
on January 1, you could spend quite a bit of it. You'd buy certain things. You could.
You in general, not
me.
Okay,
so a person could like spend it on things they think of things to buy. They might buy a new computer or even like a car or something,
T-shirt.
whatever. And then the next month, I gave you another 22. And then the next month, and the next month, and the next month, like, you can spend money, and like it's easy to spend money, and we find occasion to do that. And, you go out to eat a few times for a couple $100 a pop, and like it adds up. But like at the end of the day, there's an inflow of cash that like
and quite frankly, y'all don't. I mean, I don't know if y'all have like gold bars hidden around here or something, but like. Y'all don't spend money. You drive a fucking piece of shit car.
It's a 2002. 2002 stop.
Dude, Luke's picked me up from the bus station when I came in May. I was like astonished because I know the kind of money Luke makes. I know the firm he works for. Yeah, he just a piece of shit 2002 Saab. The thing barely fucking made it from downtown LA back to his house.
God, it's falling apart.
And his wife drives a Prius. And, I mean, granted, they have a nice house. I love their home, but it's not a big home.
1,000 square feet.
1,000 square feet. I don't know what that means, but yeah, it's not a big home. It's a 2-bedroom home. They're going to need to get another home when this family starts growing. And they don't have expensive taste. They don't go out. They stay at home with their baby.
You remember the apartment that we lived in, that me, Kanger Daddy, and Chris lived in?
In the pavilions? Yeah.
Yeah. That was 1,400 square feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the house is significantly smaller than that.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, so just money's just adding up, kind of, at this point.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and we do invest some, and we should invest more. Like, but, again, it's like, we plan to stay in these jobs for a while, and so what are you going to do?
Only more cash.
Yeah.
How long do you plan on staying in this job? We can wrap this up because we're going on like fucking over 3 hours of podcasting at this point, and we're going to have a lot more podcasts to go in the future.
Oh, I get it. From before, plus.
This is an hour 20 just now, and we had an hour 40 from before.
So, I feel like a sucker for saying this. For a while, I had no loyalty, and I think our generation generally has no loyalty to like jobs, corporate entities, because we, I think, are pretty like aware that like this is this for that, like
we
they
see
would,
the
they would fire you
Yeah.
tomorrow if, like...
They could replace you for something cheaper.
Or, yeah, exactly. So, I went into this job with a certain, distance from my coworkers and certainly from my...
What do you mean, like reticence? Like I'm not gonna get close to people because I'm leaving soon?
No, just more like, this is a job.
Got you.
I make, I'm getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. This is actually my argument to people who have since left to stay. It's like, look, you could leave, or you could do this for another 2 weeks, and at the end of that
time... It's a good point, man.
Yeah. At the end of that time, I'll give you...
Yeah.
What? $10,000? I actually don't know what I'm making a week, 2 weeks. I think it's maybe that. I think it's $10,000. But the second that deal becomes unattractive, it's a little more than $10,000. So it's like, you stick around for two more weeks, I'll give you $10,000. So that was my attitude going in. Mm-hmm. It's like, and this was my attitude for a while. It was like, this job sucks. My boss, whatever. Every once in a while, it's great. The job's a job. You're doing it for a paycheck. Never lose sight of that, right? And in a lot of jobs, my first job I was working at Target for $5.75 an hour.
$5.75?
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
In Oregon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What are the Democrats on that one?
Maybe it was $5.95. It was not $6.
That's crazy.
This is 2005, I think.
Yeah, dude. I worked in 2003, but I was making more than $5.75. My first job was...
I'm pretty sure it was minimum wage.
My first job, I was 12, and I refereed games for $20 a game. That's when I was 12. My first real job, steady, was a busboy.
Nice, bro.
And I was getting tips. I was probably pulling in 10 an hour. Mm-hmm. And then my next job after that in high school was at a deli, and I think I was making $7.50. $5.75? I don't think so, man.
All right, let me check.
I think you're making $7.15.
The state minimum wage was $7.25.
That's what you're making.
I guess. I thought I was making $5.95. That's like stuck in my head for some reason. Regardless, so he's making $7.25 an hour.
Yeah, that's what you were bringing home. You were probably the type of 15-year-old to run the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You were probably the type of 15-year-old kid to run what you were being taxed and have that number in your head instead.
I ended up getting it all back.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yes, it was probably... I'm almost certain that's what I was thinking about. Like, how much am I taking home each paycheck? Not
right.
What is the nominal. But my introduction to work, and I've had other jobs where I was making... I worked a construction job where I think I was making $10 an hour, but it's under the table. So I was taking it all home, and then all that. But I've always, opportunity cost of your time. What's the next best thing I could be doing? I'm getting X dollars for this. When is it going to be less than useful? So I approached the job that way in the beginning.
Your current job?
Not my current job, but this career.
Okay, gotcha.
Because you're told in law school it sucks. And you have to work hard.
What are you told sucks?
Big law.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
we're in a big law firm, shitty hours, like demanding whatever. And
Real quick, what does that term big law means? Means you're representing big companies?
big law is a type of legal job where you work for a big firm. Now, big firms tend to represent or do represent big companies. But big law is just like, you work for this system where you come into law school, you come out of certain law schools, you can get a spot at any number of firms that all pay the same, that more or less have the same kind of like shitty existence, where you're, certainly in the beginning, like you're doing repetitive, uninteresting work, where you're kind of interchangeable. You're not really learning legal skills. You're more learning how to exist or whatever in this particular context, and where your life is kept track of or tracked in 6-minute increments.
What?
So 1/10 of an hour.
Oh, I got you. Billable hours.
Right. And so I bill out at a certain rate. So if I work for an hour if I work on a particular project, I record that. And then that, is aggregated with all the other work that all the other lawyers do. The hours are multiplied by our particular rates. So I have a rate. What 1 hour of my time is worth, or rather what 1 hour of my time is charged to a client. And then, that's how the firm makes money.
Big law makes it sound like it's like the Walmart of law, or maybe the Apple of law. But in terms of who they're recruiting to work, is it? I mean, obviously you went to a very prestigious law school and you were successful, and your wife as well. Is big law only select the top of the class?
Getting into big law, you can get into big law from a certain group of schools. So if you go to Harvard, you can go into big law basically in any city, provided like
Even if you finish last in your class at Harvard?
yeah. Actually. Definitely. It's at that point, it's, are you personable?
Got you.
Because
So if you get into Harvard Law,
and
you
you can
can just
interview.
dick off. If I could get into Harvard Law,
If you get into like Duke Law,
right? If you
I
get
think
in
they have a law school.
top 10 law school,
Yeah, top 20 law school, depending on what region you want to work in, right? So, like, you go to Harvard, you go anywhere in the country.
right?
You go to Texas, right? UT Austin. You want to work in Texas, you're fucking golden. Mm-hmm. Getting a job, and you can also, almost anybody can work in New York if you're like from a top 20 school, probably.
Just because there's so much law.
Yeah, it's a bit of a meat grinder. High turnover. This is speaking generally.
Yeah.
Firms are different, but
Right.
yeah. But if you go to, say,
Don't you
University
say it,
of
bro.
Oregon.
Don't you say it. Thought you were going to say ASU.
University of Oregon. ASU is actually a pretty good law school.
Oh, for
I
real?
think top 30. I think low 20s, 22 maybe. Maybe high teens. Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law.
Yeah, the best.
She went to Stanford, but whatever.
We rep her anyway.
But she has a house in Arizona, so
She was in Phoenix once.
yeah.
University of Oregon, not a great law school?
No, I mean it's all relative, but
Yeah.
no. Maybe the top 10, maybe top 15 students. Well, you could get, big law jobs.
Standard state law school, X. You have to be at the top of your class to get into big law.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, like, Portland doesn't have a lot of big law. And, like, if you're going out of state, it's like, first of all, if you're at U of O for law school, you're presumably from the state. Like, you're a public institution, you're probably trying to get in-state tuition, blah, blah, blah. And also, like, why would you go to Eugene? I'm sure it has certain... I'm not trying to shit on U of O here. Just easy example. But, like, let's say you're trying to get a job at, like, in Denver. Like, there are a lot of people trying to get a job in Denver.
Uh-huh.
Right? It's all the, like, UC Boulder, like, UC Denver. I don't know how many law schools are out there. But it's like, you know, there's only so many slots each year, and these firms are only so big, and so nationwide there's X number of slots, and you can get them just about anywhere if you go to certain schools, and you can get them regionally if you go to other schools. If you don't go to those schools and you go to certain, you got to be like top of your class, whatever. But that's the system. And let's say you, like, strike out. You don't get one of these jobs. Because the way that hiring goes, typically it's seasonal. There are spots that open up yearly, and there's a law school-related recruiting cycle, but there's also a kind of fiscal calendar recruiting cycle that has to do with people wanting to, like, make sure they earn their bonus, because bonuses are paid out at the end of the year in a lump sum. It's not sprinkled throughout. So it's like, if it's November and I've earned my bonus, it's like I could walk now, or I could wait 2 months and, like, get a $80,000 bonus and then walk.
If you walk in November, you don't get, like, a prorated bonus?
Oh, you can maybe negotiate that, but why would they give it to you? Mm-hmm. Right? Unless if you're going to another firm that really wants you, and you're like, hey, I'd love to join you, but I'd rather join in February.
So, for instance, Sue was talking to us about this trial she's potentially going to in January, and she was saying, I think some integral member of the team is walking away in January. That's because she's waiting to get her bonus.
No. Oh. Their bonuses, I think, get paid out in February at that particular firm.
Whoa. What's the chick doing?
It's not entirely clear.
Okay.
So she's got a good in-house gig, but it's not so good that she should walk away from her bonus, because it's like $100,000 at her level of seniority.
Right.
Let's see. I mean, it's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
So what you say is, look, here's $100,000 on the table for me, between the difference between starting, like, January 15 and February 15. I'm going to start February 15 unless you want to give me $100,000. Yeah. And I don't know anything about it, but from what I understand, she's, like, going to leave early without the check. So.
Oh, that's something you guys have talked about?
Soon I talk about it, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's say you don't get this job first year. Or you don't get this job, like, on the calendar. You're like, oh, next year. No. Next year, there are going to be... I don't know how many kids go to law school in the country. It's a lot.
Probably too many, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it like a surplus?
Well, it depends on what you think about. Yeah. I think so, but again, like, that all depends on, like, how much debt people are taking on. Like, doesn't make sense to go to law school, take on $200,000 in debt, and then, like, not be employed.
Yeah.
Or at least not be able to do, like, work that requires a JD. Anyway. But if you miss the train, the very next year, there's a whole new batch of top 5 students out of these schools, and top 20 students out of these schools, and, like, Harvard grads, and, like, and what, you're a year removed? What have you been doing?
You're not probably been in worse shape. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, that Well, you definitely do get a job. It's just not necessarily that. It's not necessarily, a lot of law schools actually offer employment to recent law grads to boost their employment numbers. Well, that's a cynical reading. A lot of law schools offer employment to recent law grads for whatever reason, but it's tough. But if you're lucky enough, and we're lucky enough to be in this world where we got on the train and we've been riding this train for however long, now we can get off and get on another train. And we can bounce around law. Not bounce around, but we can make moves. And I did. 2 years, 3 months in, I made a move. Wow, that was a big wind up. So what I was going to say is, stop asking questions. There was this arm's length nature of my work and the way I conceived of it. And I got this job at the firm I work at now, and I really like it, and I like the people, and it's got a good culture and all that. And then, so I started in December, a year ago. When I was interviewing, I told them, I was like, my wife's pretty pregnant. Jojo was born in February, and I took 2 weeks off then. And I was planning on taking the balance of my parental leave, which was 4 more weeks. They had a primary, secondary distinction. My thinking was Sue is home with the baby. She's primary. That leaves secondary. I'm secondary. So that was my assumption throughout February, March, April, May, June, July. June. And then Sue and I talked. And we were arguing about, I'm sure it was arguing about, I work too much, she's stuck at home with the baby. I'm arguing about, I would do anything to be stuck at home with the baby. And she's like, well, you're not even willing to take advantage of your leave policy. What are you talking about? And she says, you're only going to take secondary leave. Why aren't you taking primary leave? Because my firm had a policy where if you're primary caregiver, you get 18 weeks. And I was like, what are you talking about? You're primary. I can't be primary because you're primary. I'm secondary. The secondary policy is 6. And she said, no, I'm primary now, but when I go back to work full time, you'll be primary. I said, that's not how it works. She said, that's absolutely how it works. Our policy is the same, primary, secondary, and explicitly spells out that if you're in a situation where your partner has leave, but then goes back to work, and you decide to assume this role, that's primary. And so I looked at our policy, and our policy was silent on this particular issue. Doesn't clarify. So I said, Sue, this is clearly a misunderstanding. I had never even conceived of doing this. And she said, oh, that's interesting, because I thought you were just being a dick.
Wow, that'd be real dickish. I don't want to stay home with my baby?
Well, I don't want to suffer the professional consequences, perhaps, of what it would...
Got you.
And so I set up a meeting with HR at my job and said, hey, here's the situation. My wife also works in this industry. In fact, she's more senior than I am. She's going back to work full-time. I'm going to be stepping into the primary caregiver role, and I'd like to take primary leave.
There's a thing.
And they said, good, that's what it's there for.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And they said, people don't usually do this.
Oh, really?
In fact, you're the only person who's done this, or who's, explored this. But, good, that's what it's there for. This is early July. Late July. So I email HR. I email my team. I explain that I'm doing this thing. I'm going to be out for 16 weeks, basically 4 months. Under the primary caregiver policy, even though, I wasn't planning on that. I'd actually explicitly said to them months prior, 6 weeks, total 4 more weeks. In that interim...
Because our initial thinking when we first discussed this whole nanny situation was me coming out here in August or July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, then late July rolls around, and my firm announces a new policy. Everyone, doesn't matter, we're not talking about primary, secondary. If you're a new parent, you get 18 weeks. And if you happen to have given birth, carried a child, you get an additional 6 to 8 weeks.
Retroactively?
No, not retroactively. But just like, if you're a new parent, if you adopt, or there's a baby born in your family, you get 18 weeks.
Not, hey, everyone, you get to go hang out with your 8-year-old for 14 more weeks.
Correct. Yeah. Going forward, from now on, if you take parental leave, it's eligible within 1 year of the birth of your child, 18 weeks. So, this was like what I was intending to do.
I remember you sending me that article. That was...
Yeah.
Do you think that was because of you?
No. They had been talking about it.
Oh.
But one of the reasons they had been talking about it, I think, is because they had this policy that was intended to allow people to do this thing.
But no one was
doing it.
Yeah.
Except I was about to do it.
Yeah.
But now, so I did this thing. I went out on leave about a month after they announced the policy, and I didn't come back for 4 months. And I now see people, and they're like, I think it's so cool that you just they changed the policy, and you just were like, fuck yeah, and took it. And I was like, no, I was actually planning on doing this. I'm
a pioneer here.
I'm actually a co-parent. My wife and I are equally invested in our child's growth, development, and well-being. And they're like, no, good. No. All right, got it, bro. That was,
Good thinking, bro.
Yeah, they're like, oh, sick. Good timing, huh? And honestly, I was concerned when it was like this primary secondary distinction, because I was, this thing is like, this is what drove home for me one aspect of gender discrimination in the world, in the workplace, was I'm super progressive. You know me.
Mm-hmm. You're wearing Kamala Harris for the People t-shirt.
I'm so glad she branded her presidential campaign as for the people, so I can wear this when she runs for Senate. And I, first of all, didn't even think that I could be a primary caregiver under the former policy. The thought didn't even cross my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I think of myself as being a person who does not get stuck in these particular ruts with respect to these types of stereotypes or anything like that. I even from the beginning, I saw myself, at least in the context of our family, as definitely a co-equal parent and equally invested and involved. But as soon as I put on that work hat and started thinking about work policy and my relation to it, it was just secondary caregiver.
Yeah, 4 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. And my old firm was a total of 4 weeks, so it would have just been 2 more.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, this is a generous policy. And it never even crossed my mind. And then when I learned from HR that I could do this, I was like, awesome. I'm doing this. I sent an email to my team. I'm doing this. But I was like thinking about how is this going to be perceived, and it was easy to imagine. Part of my doing this was like a very practical. Sue's going back to work. We don't have childcare lined up. Like, if Sue was willing to stay at home or had a career that was less lucrative, like I would have. That how would that calculus have come out? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that I would have done the primary, but who knows? And if it's that hard for me to avail myself of a stated benefit at my job, how hard is it for I don't know, Joe Sixpack?
Yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things. We were at the women's initiative at work had a
Joe Sixpack.
I almost said Joe the plumber. That would be too politically charged.
Joe Sixpack sounds fun. I hang out with that guy.
Yeah. We had this women's initiative thing, and it was what can you do? Basically, it's the women's initiative was getting together, being we need to work on sex in the workplace, retention and promotion of women, these things that are difficult for industry. And our firm too. I mean, our firm is not divorced from the industry. And they're sitting around and they're oh yeah, that. Oh yeah, absolutely. This. Yeah, we're all on the same page. And we're we all know, basically. All the women get it. Because, they, and they're what we really need is for the guys to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, we need the men to be on board with this and the men to actually get it. So we had this event where everyone at the firm got together and they basically were here's what you can do. Gentlemen, you're always asking, how can we do better? How can we be better allies? Here's your list. Get your pencils ready. And they run through it. And at one point they said, take your leave. Take all of your leave. And, be vocal about the fact that you were happy about it. And at that moment, I was the only person in the room who had done this. Because I literally had gotten back that day. It was that day. My first day back in the office, Thursday, December 12th. That was the day of the event.
Oh, wow.
It was literally,
just now.
2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, they changed the policy in July.
Right.
And went out in August and got back Thursday. So.
Do you think that's, and we can wrap up, do you think they should, that men and women should have the same leave?
I think the way we do it now is right.
At y'all's firm?
Yeah. Everyone gets the same leave. If you went through pregnancy, you get additional medical leave.
Oh, because that was what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because they have physical recovery. It seems like they should.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It should be longer.
So she gets medical leave on top of that? Did she take medical leave on top of that? Was it 2 more weeks? Or?
So I think Sue's firm had 20 or 22 weeks. And then, but Sue's firm, unlike a lot of firms...
These are super... I mean, from American standards, these are super... That's as good as it gets, right?
In America.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
So there are private companies like Netflix is a year.
What?
Mm-hmm. And then there's another...
Wait, you get a job at Netflix and just get knocked up and then dip out.
I'd take issue with
my verbiage.
A number of... Yeah.
But you could, right? Theoretically?
I guess.
Is it for both male and female?
I don't know. I think so. I'm sure.
So in your case, You could have got a job in Netflix in December, had a baby in February, come back in February 2021, made $300,000 doing nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So, remember where this all started? Was that I have had a certain view of work.
Right.
I will work for 2 more weeks for you for this marginal paycheck.
Right.
When does your job stop being worth it? When do you quit? When do you leave? When do you move? Up until this. And this is why I think what Netflix is doing is not just right, but also smart. Is that I now feel, and again, I said this a while ago, but maybe I'm a sucker. But I feel indebted to my firm for giving me this opportunity.
Wow.
Because, I mean, this is not how it usually is, and this is not me bragging, but like, you saw how JoJo reacted when I walked out the door today.
Yeah.
When she was there with you and with Sue. Mm-hmm. Right, and she was distraught that I was leaving. Mm-hmm. Because
you got to spend...
I got to spend 4 months with that girl. Mm-hmm. And, like, she's my daughter. Mm-hmm. And, like, she knows me and she loves me. And, like, that was not how it was. The start of my leave was a lot like your last few days. Mm-hmm. Right? She would cry and scream when Sue would leave. She wouldn't let me give her a bottle. She wouldn't go down for a nap. It was a nightmare. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was doing. And, like, it sucked. And now... we have the best relationship. Mm-hmm. We get along so well.
Yeah, you can toss her around like a fucking football.
Yeah, and she loves it.
Yeah.
And, like, it's a blast. And, like, my firm gave me that. And they did not have to. Mm-hmm. And, like, I was going to do everything I could to take that based on the policy that existed at the time. But they, right before I was about to, said... we're giving this to you and we want you to take it. And it's probably the best thing I've ever gotten from anybody I've ever worked for.
For sure, yeah.
And, like, on top of the fact that they kept every 2 weeks giving me 10 grand the entire fucking time.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's not even like, hey, you'll have a job when you get back, but...
No. They're going to pay me a stupid salary...
to go hang out with your daughter.
To hang out with my daughter for 4 months in a row.
Yeah.
And, like, they did that. They chose to do that.
And not only that, now they're emphasizing it as, like, everybody do this. This is what's right.
Yeah.
Damn, that's true.
And, like, and part of me feels like a sucker. Because it's like,
right.
They're winning. Or, like, they got you. Or, like, whatever. Mm. But, like... when you were talking about Netflix, you go get a job at Netflix and just, like, spend a year and then peace out. Mm-hmm. Sure. But I would never do that because I would feel even more so there as I do now, like, I owe them. They did right. Like, they did the right thing. They gave me something that they didn't have to give me that, is irreplaceable. And, like... I will stay there a year longer than I otherwise would.
Right.
Just because of that.
Right.
For sure. Mm-hmm. I will.
Damn.
On principle. And maybe that makes me a sucker. Maybe, like, But, like, dude, it's fucking cool, man. The defining feature of this job is often... feeling taken for granted, feeling used up, feeling taken advantage of, being up late at night or on the weekend or whatever, and having to fucking do bullshit, what feels like bullshit, and then be told, like, hey, thanks for this, but this comma, stray comma, let's work on that, okay? Like, you need to do a better job with this. Or, like, your attention to detail is... It's like, really? Are you sure it's not because I didn't sleep last night? Fuck you, right? that is what the experience of being in this industry is defined by, is conversations, condescension like that. And then, to within all of that, that's still going on. When we wrap this up, I'm logging back on. I got more work to do tonight. But, like, against that background, this is this thing. And, like, is great. It's great. It will be great. It's the foundation of my relationship with my daughter. And it's going to continue for the rest of, our lives.
Literally life-changing, potentially.
Life-changing. It is life-changing. I get hit by a bus tomorrow, it'd be life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's awesome. It's fantastic. And, like,
It is life-changing because, dude, there's no replacement. No amount of money can buy 10 more weeks with your daughter during, ages 6 through 10 months.
Right.
Otherwise you just wouldn't have had that experience.
I would have gone out of pocket for that. Like, I would have paid for it. Never mind just, like, gone, leave without pay. And instead, they said, this is a priority for us. We want you to take it. It's important to the firm. We'll continue to pay you. Fucking, we ran the numbers. Too much money to do that. Mm-hmm. And, like...
That's crazy.
And, so it's both. On the one hand, I feel like a sucker. On the other hand, I'm like, I've... composing in my head, I have been for a few days, and I'm going to actually write it out and send it to the managers of the firm.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you said this to anyone?
This was...
You should.
This was the right move. Yeah, because I think there was a lot of hesitation on the part of the firm. They were talking about it for a while. And, they ended up doing it. But, like, so cool. So cool. And, like... There are and will be and have been, like, shitty days and weeks and months even. But, like, they gave me that thing. And, like, maybe it's a year in Sweden or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it's not...
It's in fucking Sweden, baby.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
This would be a good time to mention that this podcast episode is brought to you by Munger Holden.
Dude. Yeah. No, man. I mean, like, it's the shit. It's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah.
Tight. Alright, what's in there for tonight?
Alright.
4 hours in. A lot more podcasts to come from this, man. It's pearls of wisdom.
We need an audio engineer.
I know, dude.
There's a dude who's gonna, like, review it, cut it, like, trim it.
Dude. Yeah. Maybe I do. I mean, yeah, because that's the worst, man. I have this is the 25th interview I've done.
I got a guy.
Do you?
We'll see if he's up for it.
I've edited 3 of them, and it's
takes forever. It's so tedious.
Brutal.
Yeah. I've long thought that there should be a third-party service. A recording.
Yep. We're hot. Mike's hot.
There's, Levi Strauss?
Yeah, my boy. Great jeans.
Levi. Great dude. Great dude, great jeans. You know about that company?
No, I know they make jeans.
All right. Well, do you know... my understanding is that they got their start in California in the mid-1800s.
Gold rush or something?
Exactly. So one of the views of gold rushes and, like, any sort of economic explosion that occurs is the way to make money in California in 1949.
1849.
Excuse me. In 1849 was not to get a pan and a filter and
I have heard the story. Yeah.
It was to be selling the pans.
Right, yeah.
Or the shovels.
Right.
Or the strips of land. Mm-hmm. Right? Anytime you see a flurry of economic activity and it seems like everyone's
you know, making money on podcasts, on podcasting, you do not want to get into that game. You want to be one step removed from it, right? And so I've always thought, and I'm sure they exist, it's like there should be a company where you send raw audio,
yeah.
and they have editors, they have, you know, people taste, I don't know, people who understand the medium, understand what sells, and basically they'll edit it, clean it up, take out the ums and ahs or like whatever, and then send it back to you for a fee.
I would fucking sign up for that in a heartbeat, dude. It's, editing one of these motherfuckers, especially because it's your voice, and so you're so, like, I don't know if insecure is the word, but like hyper focused on the ums and ahs and shit like that. Ugh, it's so brutal. But, I mean, but the other way to do it is, like, for instance, like how Rogan does his podcast, he just fucking puts it up, man.
But
he's a professional.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He's so good on the mic.
Thousands of these things.
Yeah.
Or over 1,000 of these things at this point.
Yeah. Goal for you for 5 years from now? Get on his podcast.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That would be a dream come true, yeah. Yeah, that would be a goal, absolute goal. Longer goal than that would be I would want to be that via travel.
What?
Like, I want to take... He has people come to him. I want to go to them.
Wait a second. I just meant you record a podcast with Joe Rogan.
I'm taking the next step. I would want to be the Joe...
I want to be the Anthony Bourdain of Joe Rogan.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, it's even better. I want to be the next Anthony Bourdain. That void needs to be filled.
Dude,
we know how that is.
Gosh, yeah. Diners, drive-ins, and dives.
But that's how I want to be, man, except not via food. Maybe via, like, physical activity would be, like, the common, you know, uniting factor or whatever. Sports.
Anthony Bourdain meets Bear Grylls.
Yeah. That'd be dope as fuck, man. It's doable.
You meet up with people, you roll for a bit.
Yeah.
When he taps.
Or climb mountains, or fucking, you know, travel to these countries or these parts of the world and, like, learn about what's the, like...
Just break someone.
Yeah. What's the cool physical activity y'all are doing here? Tell me about it. Show me about it. And then learn the culture via physical activity. That'd be fucking dope. And just don't kill yourself at the end of it. Because remember, that's the guiding principle at all.
His terms, bro. Out on his terms.
Out on his terms. I mean, yeah, it's one way to look at it. Yeah, I think all that shit's doable. It's about direction, man. It's about me identifying a path and stop just, like, meandering around and taking whatever next opportunity comes my way. It's about actually taking control of my life, identifying a goal, identifying a path, and pursuing that relentlessly with confidence and enthusiasm.
There it is.
Rather than just pursuing life in general with confidence and enthusiasm, but without direction.
Right. God damn, I gotta go log back on. I can't fucking do this shit.
Go earn my paycheck!
Gotta go earn my paycheck.
My paycheck. Let's make this last of 5 minutes. Let's make that the next podcast, like long-term dreams and goals.
Yeah. Ice cream sandwiches.